The story begins with a core idea. In this world, everyone receives a unique skill from a spirit at birth. This skill is sacred to all of humanity and never changes. Uncle Joel, the old man who raised Erenn, would often tell him stories. As an adult, Erenn diligently studied a book on fighting, eager to apply his knowledge. He soon found his chance against a real-life, dragon-like monster that thrashed wildly through a room. The creature was ultimately defeated by his acquaintance Zack, a talented swordsman and the leader of an S-rank party. Erenn thanked him for his help as Zack sheathed his sword. Zack then called the rest of the group, explaining they could maintain their S-rank if they defeated the boss. He chanted, "Victory lies in crushing the weak. The group needs to use their skills to their full potential." The skills he referred to were these very gifts, bestowed by spirits and unique to each individual. These skills were integral to every person's life, often determining their profession or lifestyle. Triumph was one officially recognized S-rank party, where elite monster hunters and S-rank adventurers gathered. Zack himself was exceptional, with a personal record of taking down an S-rank monster, a fearsome griffin. Erenn's party boasted several talented individuals. Gil, a gunner strong enough to be considered by international armies. Silver, a spear expert and award winner. And Dina, a magic specialist adept at both curses and healing. Erenn, however, was considered nothing more than a mere errand boy. He panted, struggling to keep up with the party, a heavy backpack weighing him down. Despite his humble title, he tried to help wherever he could. Dina once asked if he truly understood his position in the group, and Erenn knew she wasn't wrong to ask. A young girl pounced out, and to Erenn's delight, it was Asuna, a magic knight specializing in warcraft. She swiftly battled the dragon, jumping effortlessly across its jaw. Dina instructed the party to shadow Asuna's movements as she drew her sword and called the spirits. In no time, the spirit's power transmuted to Asuna, who effortlessly defeated the creature. She landed gracefully, sheepishly apologizing for being late. Erenn gazed at Asuna in amazement. She was the only female S-rank knight, and she had once saved an entire country by herself. The reason Erenn was even there was because of a promise he had made to Asuna. It turned out that Erenn's grandfather, a person who meant a great deal to him, had fallen ill, and Erenn had set off to find a cure. When he faced danger, it was Asuna who saved him. When he told her the reason for his journey, she invited him to join her. Asuna asked Erenn what he would do once he found a cure for his grandfather, and Erenn admitted he hadn't thought that far ahead. Asuna reassured him that he would find something he truly wanted to do. It was no secret that being an errand boy wasn't the nicest job, but Erenn was grateful for the distraction at the time. Despite Erenn staying out of trouble, he still became a victim of some harsh opinions. Zack truly had it in for Erenn, openly admitting he only tolerated him because Asuna had asked him to. But deep down, Zack harbored a desire to deal with Erenn while he could. In that very moment, Erenn was suddenly picked up off the ground despite Asuna yelling at Zack to stop. Zack taunted him, demanding, "What is a tamer, a beastmaster who controls fierce monsters, or a dragon rider who dominates the skies?" Erenn stuttered, mentioning his pet wolf, Ran, and how it would be unsafe to send him into battle. His words only further provoked Zack, who raised his hands, poised to strike. Asuna yelled at Zack to leave Erenn alone, but it was too late. Erenn was thrown to the ground with a thud. As he picked himself up, Erenn heard a strange voice. But before he could pinpoint its origin, Asuna was on her feet ready to attack Zack. She confronted him for acting in a way no leader should simply because of a personal issue with Erenn. She rushed to Erenn's side, apologizing for Zack's behavior, but Erenn had already absorbed Zack's cruel words. He wiped away his tears, vowing not to give up, if he could just finish charging it twice more. The party arrived at the guild dungeon just in time for the Cyclops battle. Erenn felt nothing stronger than the desire to get out of the area. Asuna warned him that the dungeon was dangerous, suggesting he wait behind and perhaps make a map. She explained that while a tamer might not be suited for combat, he possessed skills no one else in the party had. Erenn smiled at her encouraging words, reassuring Asuna he would have the maps ready in time for their return. He called for Ron and together they departed. Erenn smiled, thinking of Asuna. She was the only one who saw him as a valuable party member, never once doubting him. He carefully prepared the maps, knowing the team could use them to navigate the land and avoid monsters. Suddenly, two fighters burst past, looking as though they were running for their lives. Erenn froze, knowing he didn't want to die here, not today. His eyes widened as he realized something must be seriously wrong. It turned out that within the dungeon, the creatures were nothing like the Cyclops the guild had prepared the party to face. These creatures were powerful and strong, barely taking any damage from their strikes. And it was Zack who was panicking the most. Despite being an S-rank adventurer, he was visibly worried. The creatures seemed to be some kind of hybrids, showing no signs of defeat. Erenn, clearly not thinking straight, charged into the dungeon. Asuna yelled at him, and Zack was perplexed as to why the Tamer had decided to join them in their doom. Snapping back to reality, Zack yelled for Dina's help. He took her wand and began a spell paralyzing Erenn. Zack didn't care about the consequences of using Erenn for his own success. He planned to use poor Erenn as bait, ensuring he wouldn't return as a loser. Zack told the team that returning without killing the creature would stain their records. But if they used Erenn, they could blame his death as the reason for their retreat. Asuna was shocked by Zack's sickening plan as she knelt beside him. Zack shrugged, smugly stating that it would be better for one Erenn boy to die than an S-rank adventurer. His words were enough to disgust Asuna, who refused to follow such a leader. She faced the beast single-handedly, as Erenn yelled at her to come back. Zack did nothing but call her dumb, turning to the defenseless Erenn to finish him off. Erenn begged him to stop, insisting that he would be the decoy and that Zack needed to take Asuna to safety. But Zack smirked, telling Erenn that dead weight can struggle all it wants. At the end of the day, it is still worthless. He left Erenn paralyzed and alone, knowing Asuna could get seriously hurt because of him. Just as Erenn was about to give up, he spotted Asuna battling the monster heroically. She fought on until she was knocked to the ground. She weakly told Erenn to run, but he had already crawled his way to her. She urged him to leave, but he knew he couldn't. Remembering her earlier words, tears fell from Erenn's eyes as he realized he hadn't done anything yet. As he sobbed, a cloud of smoke appeared, with wings emerging from the mist. Erenn moved back, confused by the spectacle. The dust settled, revealing a winged girl. She smiled down at Erenn, telling him that she had finally found her master. Erenn gazed up in shock. Erenn and Asuna realized at that moment that Triumph had abandoned them, and they were left in the dungeon, surrounded by the Cyclops. The winged girl was ecstatic to see Erenn, calling him her master as she ascended, thrilled that she had finally hatched. She was the Phoenix, a valued spirit that had been within Erenn all this time. With 15 years worth of power stored, she was ready to be in the world. Erenn was shocked to find a beautiful phoenix in his presence, especially one calling him her master. Erenn realized that the phoenix looked very human-like, similar to one in his favorite book, the legendary Spirit Encyclopedia. Erenn remembered that a phoenix was an entity that has healing powers, and is also capable of burning anything to ashes. He was stunned to find that everything he read about actually existed and was embodied in the creature in front of him. Suddenly, Erenn remembered the danger he and Asuna were in. He turned to the phoenix and asked her if he could use her powers. The phoenix flew towards him, telling him that he still did not realize his true possession. She broke Erenn's paralysis, and in no time he was able to move again. She then instructed Erenn to focus on his mind. He held his hands out and got up with power, before telling the phoenix they should go. Together, they used the flaming arrow to defeat the Cyclops. From outside of the dungeon, the party could hear a strange rustling sound. They nervously turned to see what was making the noise. They were shocked to find flames, and not any ordinary flame, but one caused by magic. Did Asuna really do that? They thought that there was no way, and it was definitely the monster's doing. That was a skill that even the mages haven't mastered yet. But it turned out that the flames were not coming from the monsters. Instead, it was the power of the phoenix, who was holding Erenn close as she flew. Erenn looked over to see a terrifying amount of monsters, but the phoenix found the situation to be nothing but awesome. She told Erenn that he was a spirit user, and Erenn asked if that made him an elemental master. Erenn obtained new skills after the event, which was announced by the voice of the Spirit King, the one who oversees and manages all Spiritus. The king announces things like newly obtained skills. Erenn listened to the skills he acquired and told the phoenix sheepishly that he had no idea what they were. But the phoenix was happy to announce that Erenn's entire profession had transformed, from a tamer to a spirit user, a job which was blessed endlessly by spirits. The phoenix explained that it was actually a power that could be used to change the entire world. Asuna smiled as she heard the news, before embracing him in a warm hug. Not to mention their wounds had completely healed. The phoenix smiled as she watched over the two, pleased that Erenn was able to awaken just in time. She was convinced that Erenn would use his power well and in service of something good. Erenn needed to get used to his new position as a spirit wielder, a one-of-a-kind class blessed by spirits. His whole identity had changed in a matter of minutes, from beast tamer to spirit wielder. Asuna was stunned by how Erenn had changed class, as it was something she had never even heard of before. Usually humans were granted skills by the spirits right after birth, and took on the class best suited to them. Erenn was an exception, born with a high spirit within him. Now that the phoenix had awakened, he could finally become who he was meant to be. Asuna grabbed her friend's shoulders, telling him how big of a deal this was. This meant that Erenn could use a range of skills however he wanted. But Erenn was clearly overwhelmed by the news. He told Asuna that nothing really felt real. Asuna reminded him that with his powers he had blown up an entire dungeon, and that was something he should be proud of. She stopped fretting and told Erenn they should head back to the guild to calm down. More importantly, they needed to report that they had been expelled from Triumph, their former S-rank party. As soon as they arrived, the guild receptionist asked if they were safe. She then broke the news to Erenn that his uncle Joel was now in critical condition. Erenn froze as he heard the news, but Asuna knew they needed to get moving. Uncle Joel's village was a 3-day journey from the guild. The receptionist explained that the blast earlier had caused delays at the carriage station. Erenn looked down. Not only had he failed to find a cure, but it was also because of him that they could not travel. Just as he was about to lose hope, the Phoenix swept him into the air and reassured him that she could get them there on time. She told him about a high-level Phoenix spirit skill and said that Erenn should watch and learn. She flapped her wings and they were gone, leaving the receptionist completely confused. In no time, the three landed in Erenn's hometown, Denberg Village. Erenn rushed to his uncle's home and burst through the window. Uncle Joel's carers surrounded his bed, shocked to see Erenn had returned. Erenn collapsed by his uncle's bedside, telling him he was here. Uncle Joel was the mayor of Denberg and Erenn's foster parent. It was clear how much Erenn loved his uncle. As the carers looked down in remorse, they quietly told him they had done everything they could. From contacting healers to white mages, nothing had worked. His recovery had seemed impossible. They truly wished they could have saved him. Erenn suddenly thought of his new skills and realized what the Phoenix skill was capable of. He had nothing left to lose. He held out his hands and conjured the healing flame as the Phoenix watched closely. To the shock of the carers, Uncle Joel mumbled gently. A moment ago, keeping him alive was nearly impossible, and now he was moving. Erenn stopped the spell and held on to his uncle. In no time, Joel rose out of bed. Erenn embraced him, asking if he was okay. At that moment, Erenn knew his skill was powerful. He had healed the person dearest to him in a matter of seconds. He remembered how he had searched high and low for a cure, but now, with this power, anything seemed possible. He had saved his uncle, just as Asuna had once saved him. After an emotional roller coaster of a day, Erenn passed out for a few hours. When he woke up, Phoenix and his uncle were sitting across from his bed. Confused, Erenn wondered why he felt so weak. The Phoenix explained that he had overused his magic, which was why he was experiencing such strong side effects. She told him it was something he could work on in the future, but what mattered most was that Uncle Joel was healthy. He was able to move again. Joel smiled as he petted Erenn's head, telling him he had heard about the lengths Erenn had gone to in search of a cure. He apologized for all the trouble his adopted son had found himself in. Joel took Erenn's hand and asked him to stay, admitting he had been worried about him the entire time. Erenn knew that even though his father was concerned, he still couldn't believe something like this had actually happened. Erenn spent the next few days helping others. He healed a young girl's leg, allowing her to play like a normal child again. The Phoenix would often visit and check in on Erenn, who was relieved to finally be able to do what he wanted. But the only question was, what would he do now? Asuna also stayed close by Erenn's side. She told him that she had completely recovered from the ordeal in the dungeon. Erenn smiled before apologizing for all the trouble he had caused her. Asuna looked into his eyes and asked what was wrong. It was obvious to her that her friend had a lot on his mind. Erenn was about to brush off her concern, but he knew he couldn't fool her, especially not Asuna. The Phoenix admitted that she was worried too, particularly because he had a foster parent to care for. Erenn finally admitted that he had been thinking about becoming an adventurer, hoping to put his skills to good use. He wanted to save lives. He turned to Asuna and told her that he wanted to be like her one day. Asuna smiled, knowing her friend had finally discovered his purpose. She held up a photograph of a monster wanted in the kingdom and explained that this was his chance to prove himself as an adventurer. Erenn took a long look at the poster as Asuna suggested he prove himself worthy of becoming an adventurer. Erenn knew it was exactly what he needed to do. As they departed, Asuna warned Erenn to be careful of the kobold tracks imprinted on the path. It wasn't long before one made a surprise appearance. Mason stood face to face with the gigantic wolf-like creature, preparing to cast an ice magic spell. Asuna stood with him, ready to attack. She suggested they split up and take the kobolds down individually, then sprinted off to fight. Erenn tried to calm himself. He was worried about being left alone, but he reminded himself to think rationally. Kobolds were monsters with strong physical power, so it was better to destroy them before they had the chance to attack. He sprinted toward the monster. Just a few minutes earlier, back at Joel's house, Erenn had been asked if he truly wanted to become an adventurer. He knew he could aim for it, especially now that he was a spirit wielder. Joel was worried when he heard his son's plan, fully aware of the dangers involved. Asuna had suggested that Erenn start with a simple quest. A few kobolds had been spotted in the nearby forest, and they needed to be taken down. She reassured Joel that, as an S-rank adventurer, she would stay by Erenn's side. Most importantly, it would give Erenn a chance to use his powers. Joel agreed to a deal. If Erenn returned safely by sunset, he would allow it. The two agreed to give it a try. Back in the forest, they fought the kobolds heroically. Erenn used his skills instinctively, though it was clear he still faced some difficulties. One wolf managed to land a blow first, sending Erenn flying. Phoenix realized that Erenn was trying to use control magic to shoot the fiery arrow, but he was still unskilled in this. Erenn caught his breath, realizing that without his regeneration skill, he might have died instantly. He got back on his feet. This time, Phoenix instructed him to try summoning another spirit. Erenn raised his hands and called out, asking the spirits to grant him their power. Phoenix apologized for pushing him, though she knew he had no choice but to work with the skills he already possessed. He was struggling with the Phoenix arrow and knew he needed to keep his promise to return home by sunset. He dodged another strike and triggered his steel shield. What he needed now was a powerful technique, something equal to the flaming arrow that would let him respond instantly to enemy attacks. He continued to struggle against the kobold, and before long his steel shield failed. The kobold laughed, telling Erenn that he would destroy him. Phoenix watched from afar and recognized how serious things were becoming. Erenn's regeneration was slowing down, and the kobold showed no sign of backing off. She flew over, understanding that while Erenn wouldn't die from this, it would be dangerous if he collapsed again. To make matters worse, Asuna was in trouble too. She was struggling to hold back another kobold. It turned out the one she was fighting was the Kobold King, a foe she had never encountered in this region before. Asuna ran for her life until she suddenly tripped over a rock. She looked back, terrified of what would happen next. Phoenix dashed over with her wings ablaze, but Erenn reached Asuna first, moving faster than he ever had before. Phoenix cheered him on as he realized he couldn't stop now. It turned out that Erenn had finally acquired the spirit core of the Kobold King. He landed in front of Asuna, who helped him to his feet. Erenn knew that if the roles were reversed and Asuna were in his place, things would already be okay. He remembered when they first met how she had kindly helped and reassured him. Erenn understood that as long as she was by his side, they would be okay, even as adventurers. Asuna snapped him back to reality and warned that sunset was near. They needed to finish off the beasts as quickly as possible. Erenn summoned the Phoenix Wings, knowing he had to reach a level where he could use multiple skills quickly and efficiently. Back at the village, Uncle Joel gazed at the darkening sky. Would his son make it back before nightfall? At that very moment, Erenn returned, covered in dirt. Joel was relieved to see him safe and asked if he was all right, gesturing to his clothes. Erenn smiled and told him not to worry. He had carried all the kobold remains using the Phoenix Wings, and Joel was impressed that he had managed to defeat them in such a short time. Although Erenn was successful, he was completely exhausted. He explained that he had suppressed all of the Phoenix's human form into something smaller, choosing to place it within the body of a chick, creatively named Phoenix Chick Fur. Asuna turned to Joel and mentioned that even the monsters had helped save her too. Together, they asked Uncle Joel if he approved of Erenn becoming an adventurer. Joel paused, then burst into laughter. He told them he had never intended to stop them in the first place. He was smart enough to know that even if he tried, Erenn would have gone anyway. Just like when he left to find medicine during Joel's illness. Joel smiled and told his son that there were many people out there who needed his help, and he should go fulfill that purpose. Erenn smiled, realizing he had finally earned his uncle's approval. Asuna turned to Erenn and said he must have finally found his purpose. Erenn smiled again, remembering her words from earlier. Asuna added that she still couldn't believe the spirits hadn't noticed his potential. When she first met him, he was weak, and she wondered what kind of boy he was. Now she was nothing but excited to see what kind of spirit wielder her friend would grow to be. Asuna and Erenn departed for Torca, the largest city in the kingdom. Once they arrived, they took in the new environment. There was a huge marketplace and a diverse crowd of people from all over. Erenn had never seen a place like it. The reason they had come to Torca was because it was home to the Adventurers Guild. The guild was packed with adventurers, all there for various reasons. But it was Erenn's first time. When he was doing odd jobs for the party, his name had simply been added to a piece of paper. Asuna explained how the guild worked to her friend. The Adventurers Guild was a place for party registration, finding teammates, and exchanging information. It was also possible to pick up monster hunting jobs there. Anyone could register a party as long as they applied. Erenn was surprised by how organized and straightforward the registration process was, but Asuna warned him that signing up didn't guarantee you a job. She went on to say that only those who passed the highest level difficulty exam were officially recognized by the guild as S-rank adventurers. Asuna pulled out her license to show Erenn. She continued, explaining that when S-rank adventurers team up, they form an S-rank party, the highest level an adventurer could aim for. The Phoenix chick then asked why people aimed for S-rank status, especially since there were still plenty of ordinary job requests. Asuna answered that it showed you had real experience. Because of that, the pay and perks were far better. In fact, there was no real reason not to aim for it. She also noted that clients felt much more reassured when they hired someone with proven experience. Ultimately, everyone starts from zero. The receptionist called the next person in line and was surprised to see it was Asuna. She told her that she thought she was dead. Erenn looked down as his suspicions were confirmed. Zack must have reported both of them as dead after the incident. It had likely been nothing more than an excuse to cover for himself after backing out. Overcome by anger, Erenn stepped forward and explained everything to the receptionist, who was infuriated to learn that Zack had lied. She suggested they report the situation to the guildmaster immediately. It was completely out of order for Zack to abandon his teammates in the dungeon, let alone file a false report about their deaths. Erenn turned to Asuna and asked her what they should do. Asuna looked away. In that moment, Erenn imagined his friend still embraced by triumph, with Zack watching from the shadows. He shouted her name, proposing that they form their own party, even stronger than Triumph. Asuna loved the idea. She turned to the receptionist and said that instead of complaining, they wanted to form their own party immediately. The receptionist smiled and told them it was absolutely possible. She asked them to sign the paperwork, and their party would be formed right away. However, Erenn wondered about registering the spirit. The receptionist explained that they could technically get into trouble for registering a spirit form, but this time, she would let it slide. And to make matters worse, he still had not named the Phoenix. Erenn politely asked the receptionist if he could have a bit more time to fill out the forms. He knew that spirits were valid teammates too, and he really needed to register them properly. He thought and thought, but Erenn was terrible at coming up with names. The only name he'd ever given was to Ran, his wolf, and that was a girl's name. He needed another one now. Out of nowhere, Phoenix peeked her head through the window, making Erenn jump out of his skin. She asked if he was up to no good, and Erenn blurted out that he just had something on his mind. Phoenix frowned and told him that his answer sounded super suspicious. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. Phoenix had no idea what the bright light and noise were, but Erenn explained that it was just fireworks. Phoenix smiled as she looked out the window. She asked Erenn to show her fireworks even more spectacular than those. Erenn was confused at first, but Phoenix meant it as part of his training. He reached out his hand and decided to give it a try. He called out the Phoenix wing strike, and beautiful fireworks exploded into the sky. Erenn smiled, proud of himself for pulling it off. Phoenix told Erenn that his flames as a spirit wielder were the most beautiful things she had ever seen. Then without thinking, Erenn blurted out, "Karen," before quickly apologizing. He told Phoenix that he had been thinking spirits should have names too, and this one had just come to him. He added that if she didn't like it, but before he could finish, Phoenix flew to him. She told him it was the first time anyone had ever said something like that to her. Smiling, she admitted that she had always thought of herself as just a spirit who serves others. Being given a name meant a lot to her. She squealed with joy, realizing that from now on, she would go by Karen. Back in her chick form, Karen excitedly tweeted the news to Asuna. Asuna thought the name Karen suited her perfectly, though Ran growled at the little bird. And finally, the registration form was accepted without any issues. Erenn was a little frustrated that he couldn't list Spirit Wielder as his profession on the form. But Asuna reminded him that revealing something like that could be dangerous. Someone might try to take advantage of Erenn and his rare skills. So Erenn, Karen, Asuna, and Ran set off on their adventure. From now on, they would need to stay alert and pay close attention to their surroundings. Erenn was finally starting to look like a real adventurer, and Asuna couldn't help but feel nostalgic watching him start from scratch. She explained that his next step was to pass the certification exam. If he succeeded, he would begin as an A-rank adventurer, and the team would officially be recognized as an A-rank party. For the exam, they needed to travel northwest from Torka, past the Nim Forest. Eventually, they arrived at a dark and dingy place. It was Mira Castle, also known as the Phantom Ancient Castle. Their quest was to defeat the mysterious monster that had taken over the castle a few months ago. Inside, a boy shouted at his teammates after spotting strange movements. Suddenly, a possessed woman lunged at him, shaking him to the core. The monster wasn't just unidentified, it also had the power to possess others. From the safety outside, Erenn, Karen, and Asuna watched the chaos unfold. Asuna commented that the exam seemed far more difficult than the one she had taken when she first became an A-rank adventurer with Triumph. It was clear that the adventurer inside had been defeated, and the demon was still hungry for more. Since this mission had become the official A-rank certification exam, not a single party had passed. Before entering the castle itself, the party stopped by the Torka Adventurer Gear Shop near the entrance. The store assistant thanked them for waiting. Asuna tried on some new armor, and Erenn asked if she wanted to keep browsing. But Asuna was already exhausted. Choosing an outfit was the last thing she wanted to do. On the other side of the store, Karen was having the time of her life. She eagerly asked other adventurers what they thought of her outfit. She told Erenn how much fun shopping was and added that being an adventurer wasn't so bad after all. Erenn smiled and offered to let her help pick out his outfit too. A few hours passed and it was finally time for the exam. The objective was clear. Defeat the unwelcome monster lurking in the castle and deliver its corpse to the Adventurers Guild. The party was ready. The first creature they encountered inside the castle was a devil bat, flapping erratically in front of them. As it let out a screech, Erenn raised his hands and incinerated it with a blast of fire, only to be told to stand down by Karen. She smiled and congratulated him for adjusting his power so well, saying that at this rate, he would be able to master the Phoenix Arrow in no time. Meanwhile, Asuna was holding her own, swiftly taking down the other pests. After the fight, she turned to Erenn and told him to find a rest area. Erenn took off with Ran to explore the castle in search of one. Ran led the way, barking excitedly as she sniffed out a suitable location. Suddenly, another devil bat flew at them, but Erenn managed to defeat it, claiming its spirit core as a reward. In the rest area, Erenn encountered another group, a B-rank party known as Tempest. A curious girl looked over and asked Erenn if he was an adventurer. A boy beside her muttered that he had never seen him before. "Johan, don't be so blunt," the girl Liza scolded. Erenn explained that he wasn't a full adventurer yet. This was his first time taking the certification exam. His eyes met those of the party leader, Armano, who was already eyeing Erenn's gear with suspicion. All Erenn carried was a small dagger. Erenn quickly realized that Tempest must also be participating in the exam, which meant there were likely others as well. Armano confirmed his thoughts, explaining that you never know who else is participating until you get there. The board combines the hunt with a competition, so only the most capable parties get certified. Everyone has to face the same unknown monster, and if you succeed, you don't just get certified as A rank. You gain recognition, and maybe even a shot at S rank. At that moment, Johan stepped forward, glaring at Erenn. He asked if Erenn thought this would be easy just because there was an S rank adventurer on his team. "Don't ever assume that," he growled, grabbing Erenn by the collar. "I wasn't thinking that," Erenn replied, trying to stay calm, but it was too late. The tension had snapped. Johan raised his fist, but Erenn dodged just in time and enhanced his strength, pushing off the ground to create distance. With the whole party now against him, Erenn acted fast. He launched a Phoenix Fireball, forcing Tempest to fall back. Armano stood stunned, unsure whether to be more confused by Erenn's tribute-based magic or his sudden strength enhancement. Erenn didn't wait to find out, he turned and ran. Armano narrowed his eyes. This wasn't over. Elsewhere, Asuna waited anxiously. Erenn had been gone longer than expected. When he finally returned, Karen quickly updated him that there was still no sign of the monster, and no clues to its identity. Asuna was growing frustrated. "We're wasting time," she muttered. "We need more information." Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted. Without warning, the entire floor collapsed under her feet. "Asuna!" Erenn shouted, but it was too late. Karen urged him forward. "Go after her. I'll follow." Realizing the danger Asuna could be in, Erenn didn't hesitate. He and Ran rushed to find her. Asuna had fallen into a sealed-off section of the castle. Something had grabbed her leg during the fall, but now the path she had taken was completely blocked. Karen caught up and sensed a different kind of magic lingering in the air, something unlike the devil bats they had faced earlier. "This must be the monster's energy," she said grimly. Asuna agreed. "Let's assume this trap was the monster's doing. But why haven't you been possessed?" Erenn asked. "That's what the monster is supposed to do, right? Possess a party member and turn them against the others." Asuna shook her head. "If it had possessed me, it wouldn't have made me fall through the floor. That's too risky." "No, maybe it doesn't want to reveal itself yet." After they split up again, Erenn waited anxiously in the courtyard. A growing sense of unease gnawed at him. Something didn't feel right. They were never usually this late. Suddenly, he felt a tap on his shoulder and turned around to see Asuna. His eyes lit up with relief, but that feeling quickly faded. Something was off. Her presence felt strange and unnatural. He asked if she was okay, telling her he had started to worry. Then he looked around and asked where Karen was. But Asuna remained eerily silent. Without warning, Ran lunged at her, sinking her teeth into Asuna's arm. She let out a cry of pain, but Ran held on tightly. Erenn panicked, confused by his companion's sudden aggression. Ran had never attacked Asuna before. Then he saw it. Asuna's injured arm began to shift and twist, fusing into a slimy, unnatural mess. That's when it hit him. Asuna had been possessed, and the monster must have been liquid-based. Erenn's heart pounded as he tried to think. He had to find a way to free his friend. He raised his hands to summon his Phoenix Fire, hoping he could burn the entity out without harming her. But as soon as he tried, his power fizzled out. He stumbled back, stunned. Asuna gasped for air, her voice strained. She said she couldn't breathe. Ran didn't let go. She held on tightly, jaws locked around Asuna's leg, her eyes glowing with fierce determination. No longer just an obedient pet, Ran was stepping into a new role, protector. She had always been the one Erenn protected, but now it was her turn to return the favor. Suddenly, a burst of blinding white light engulfed the courtyard. The ground trembled slightly as an explosion of spirit energy filled the air. Erenn staggered backward, coughing from the dust and debris. When the light faded, he looked up and what he saw left him speechless. Ran had transformed. No longer a wolf, she now stood before him in human form, radiating power and resolve. She was ready to protect Erenn, no matter the cost. Erenn was completely confused by what had just happened. His wolf had really transformed into a human. A girl? and Erenn was clearly devoted to protecting him from any danger. She explained that Asuna wasn't who she appeared to be. What happened to Asuna wasn't simple possession, it was a transformation where her body had been taken over by the mysterious monster. Erenn drew her sword and prepared to fight. Erenn was stunned to see Erenn fully transformed using skills in her human form. Her movements reminded him of a high-level spirit, like Karen. And just when things couldn't get any stranger, Erenn turned around and saw himself. A boy stood before him, identical in appearance, looking just as terrified. Erenn was beyond impressed by Rand's magical abilities and how quickly she'd figured out the monster's nature. She lunged at the body double without hesitation, instantly recognizing who her real master was. She hit the ground hard, unconcerned with the imposter's motives. All that mattered was protecting Erenn. Rand fought ferociously, unleashing powerful skills. She even formed a tornado from wind magic, which could evaporate the liquid with just a touch. Erenn knew that could pin the monster down effectively, and for a moment he was hopeful that they might actually defeat it. But then he realized something important. If the monster was made of liquid, they couldn't fully evaporate it since they needed to deliver a body to the guild as proof they had completed the mission. Just then, Asuna cried out as a whip of slime lashed past her. Erenn noticed that the creature flinched at the Phoenix teleport. Asuna shouted that there was now another version of her too, and they needed to capture it before it escaped. Karen, observing the strange girl, recognized her. Even in human form, the two began to bicker. Karen asked if the girl really was Rand, but there was no time for explanations. Erenn explained that the wolf was the spirit he had given the tamer skill to, adding that some spirits naturally take the form of animals or plants. Karen pointed out that the wolf's strong will had resonated with his spirit wielder power, which caused her to evolve into a divine wolf. Erenn turned to Karen and asked why she hadn't mentioned earlier that she knew Rand was a spirit. Karen smiled and told him that with her around, he had nothing to worry about. She recalled the dungeon incident and admitted she had wanted to be the one to save him. Erenn defended Rand, reminding Karen that it was his wolf who had saved him this time. Not to mention, Rand had figured out the monster's identity. Even in human form, Rand was still dog-like in her obedience and thrilled to have impressed her master. She eagerly declared she would find the monster. Asuna believed that the transformation was the monster's true form, which would explain why there were duplicates of both her and Erenn. She remembered that when she fell through the floor, the slime had attacked her, but she hadn't felt possessed. But something felt off to Erenn. The slime was afraid of Rand. Even if it was the target, would a true monster really tremble like that? Asuna agreed. She had never encountered slime like this before. She called Erenn over and said the slime wasn't just any monster, it was the same as them, a high-level spirit. It turned out that this slime wasn't a monster after all. It was a spirit called Queen Slime. After many years, she had evolved from an ordinary slime into a high-ranking spirit. Karen recalled that when she fell underground to rescue Asuna, she had sensed a strong magical energy from the slime. But even Karen hadn't imagined it could be a spirit all this time. The party knew they still needed to defeat the mysterious being and hand over its remains to the Adventurers Guild. Erenn reminded them that this was the main objective of the A-rank certification exam after all. Queen Slime expelled a surge of liquid at Erenn as she spoke. He was the first human to make it this far, she said. Erenn wondered aloud whether spirits could even die. Karen explained that it was more accurate to say that spirits disappear rather than die. It was similar to when they are granted the ability to slay humans or defeat monsters. Erenn tried to summon his phoenix wings again, but the skill still wouldn't trigger. He switched tactics, activating his steel shield along with regeneration. The spirit observed closely, fascinated by how quickly his wounds healed. Karen raised her bow and shouted that Erenn had both the dog and her on his side. Rand snapped back that she wasn't a dog, then charged forward sword first. Together, they fought as hard as they could, urging Queen Slime to surrender. The slime laughed in response, then retaliated with a torrent of liquid. Karen recoiled in disgust, wondering if there had ever been a spirit like this in all her years. Erenn was concerned too. He had never read about or encountered anything like Queen Slime. Asuna continued to fight, though Queen Slime seemed unfazed. It was clear that she had powered up since her previous transformation. Still, she couldn't land a blow on Ron, the puppy she couldn't defeat. Despite the battle, the spirit seemed impressed by Asuna's skill. Erenn shouted at Queen Slime, asking why she was acting this way, especially as a spirit. He pleaded with her to stop, saying he wouldn't hurt her. He reminded her how afraid she had seemed earlier. Borrowing Rand's power, he attempted the Sword of the Wind God, though he feared it could be absorbed again. He tried to get closer to Queen Slime, hoping to reason with her, but he was struggling to contain her. If she spread out too far, there would be no way to defeat her. He ordered the party to focus on holding off the clones and to avoid killing Queen Slime. But in truth, everyone was struggling. Asuna cried that they could always retake the exam. Karen was frustrated that her attacks kept bouncing back. Erenn realized that if Queen Slime truly was a spirit, he could still convince her to cooperate. He shouted to her, explaining that she was being targeted in the name of an exam and that she was in real danger. She froze, looking down in panic. All she wanted was to live peacefully in the forest. But one day, everything went dark, and she found herself trapped in this castle. Karen, stunned, asked how it was even possible for someone to trap a high-level spirit. Queen Slime didn't answer. She simply bounced away through another door. The truth was heartbreaking. Queen Slime had been rejected and ridiculed by society. She was branded a monster and banished from civilization. Humans would make trips just to torment her, so she taught herself to morph into their forms to scare them away. Looking down in shame, she admitted that whether she attacked or not, her fate seemed to be the same. Tearfully, she told Erenn she didn't want to live like this anymore. Erenn promised to get her out of the castle. She just needed to calm down. But before anyone could say another word, the B-rank party arrived, surrounding them on all sides. Queen Slime backed away, terrified, as Armano stepped forward. He declared that he would be the one to turn the monster into a corpse. Face to face with Erenn, Armano swore he would be the one to destroy the monster. He turned to Queen Slime and asked if it was true that she was a spirit. Erenn's eyes widened. How did Armano know that? Armano looked back at Erenn and asked if he seriously intended to save her. He then whipped out sharp weapons and dispersed them across the room. Erenn quickly activated his shield to avoid getting hit. Armano smiled smugly and claimed that the hunt had been designated as a trial, and no party had ever ranked up to A rank from it. However, if his party succeeded in this trial and got recognized, he would become famous overnight. Erenn remained behind his shield until it suddenly disappeared. The tags Armano had released had stuck to his body. Armano laughed, taunting Erenn for his failure. But in no time, Asuna was back on her feet, ready to strike. Erenn realized Armano must be a spell tag user and a skilled one. Armano warned the party that even if they fought back, their skills would eventually be sealed by his magic tags. Asuna raised her sword and activated Aqua Jail, vowing to destroy Armano's tags for good. She fought with all her strength, but soon noticed that these tags weren't ordinary. As Asuna struggled, the rival party member, Liza, swept her up onto her broomstick. She cackled and gloated that she finally had a chance against an S-rank adventurer. Armano advanced toward Erenn, but Ran stepped in to block him, taking her first strike. She successfully dodged his tags by swiftly shifting between her wolf and human forms. Meanwhile, Asuna regained control of her sword and struck Liza, who screamed in pain. Asuna shouted to Ran to be careful and avoid getting hit by the tags. Karen in bird form flew around the castle trying to come up with a plan. She found it odd that the castle showed no signs of collapse despite its old and damaged appearance. Could it have something to do with the slime being trapped inside? Erenn generated a strength boost and charged Armano head-on. He managed to block Armano's strikes and attempts to tag him. Armano asked if Erenn was even willing to listen or if he had completely lost control. In a flashback, Armano remembered the day he received the magic ceiling tags. He smiled at the rare items. Liza had told him he could use them before the A-rank recognition exam. This was his chance to pass. A mysterious hooded stranger had approached Armano, offering him critical information, the true identity of the mysterious monster and inside knowledge about the other parties. But Armano had been suspicious. Why would this man tell him any of that? The stranger replied that he knew how badly Armano wanted to succeed, especially because of Armano's past trauma where his childhood friend had been wrongly prosecuted. Armano snapped and demanded to know how the man knew such personal details. The stranger didn't answer. Instead, he handed Armano a magic ceiling tag, an extremely powerful one made with rare magic. The man promised Armano he would reach A rank in no time if he used it. Once he rose in rank, he would have the power to take revenge on those who looked down on him. Armano clenched his fists. He was tempted for his friend's sake. Then the stranger gave him one last instruction: defeat Erenn. Back in the present, Armano showed no signs of giving up. Erenn, overwhelmed and exhausted, was beginning to lose hope. He feared that the spirit had no chance of surviving. Lady Slime was completely terrified, tears streaming down her face. Erenn rushed to finish off Armano, knowing that Lady Slime's body had been sealed with spell tags. This meant it could explode or tear apart at any moment. He demanded that Armano undo them as they battled once more. Armano smiled arrogantly and taunted Erenn, saying a boy who didn't even know how to use his own skills had no chance against him. Erenn warned that if Armano's tags were truly filled with powerful energy, he would use that energy against him. But Armano remained unfazed. He listed off Erenn's abilities: Phoenix Blow, Steel Shield, Strength Boost, and Wind God. He claimed none of it mattered and threatened to seal them all. Erenn knew he was in serious danger. Armano's tags were storing huge amounts of energy, enough to destroy him. But then he realized that spirit users could channel multiple forms of magic. He figured out that he could redirect the magic from the tags stuck to him and store even more magical power within them. Armano snickered and asked Erenn if the tags were burning yet. He muttered that whether spirit or human, it didn't matter. Even if he had to sacrifice Erenn to become A rank, he would do it. At that moment, Erenn pulled out the Phoenix arrow, knowing it was now or never. In a matter of seconds, he unleashed it and caused a massive explosion that rocked the entire area. The blast was so loud that everyone stopped to see what had happened. Armano collapsed, completely defeated. Erenn rushed over to Queen Slime, who was still crying. He gently reassured her that it was safe now. Even Karen grew emotional at the moment. Erenn turned to Karen and asked if she could use Phoenix Teleport to get everyone out of the castle. She nodded and flew off to prepare it. Then Erenn turned back to Queen Slime, reminding her of the promise he'd made to get her out of there. Queen Slime was speechless. A human was really helping her? And in that very moment, Erenn obtained the spirit core of the gluttonous princess. At the Torca Adventurers Guild, participants gathered excitedly upon hearing the news that a party had passed the A-rank certification exam. They chattered about who it was that had tamed the monster, and Asuna's name could be heard among the murmurs. The adventurers mentioned how the girl from Triumph was the one responsible. Armano's group had returned safely via the teleportation wings of the Immortal Phoenix, along with Erenn's party. Erenn looked around, shocked to see that so many people had turned up. After defeating Armano, Erenn tried to figure out a way to get Slime out of the castle. They braced themselves for a challenge, but fortunately they managed to bring her out with no trouble at all. Slime let Erenn know that whenever she had tried to escape before, she was always pushed back, making Erenn believe she had been under some form of spiritual binding that kept her confined to the castle. He turned to the girl to ask what she wanted to do now that she was free, remembering how she used to live in a forest. But Slime looked at Erenn with a smile before telling him that she wanted to join him. She pleaded with him to let her stay, but Erenn was hesitant. He wondered if the guild would accept a report that simply stated the Slime was angry because she couldn't escape. Slime was shocked to see so many humans clearly still traumatized by what she had endured. As they walked, Armano kept giving them dirty looks. When the receptionist asked Armano if his party had congratulated Erenn for taming the Slime, she was rudely told to shut up by the saucy adventurer. It seemed Armano just couldn't let it go. The last thing Erenn needed to do was confirm his success with the guildmaster. Unfortunately, the guildmaster was out of office, and they were instructed by the receptionist to return in the evening, so the party walked off. But Karen had one more thing she needed to bring up to the guild. She explained that the old castle was just an ordinary fortress, yet it hadn't collapsed despite hosting numerous powerful spells. And how was a high-class spirit like Slime imprisoned? It would take someone truly powerful to accomplish that. They wondered if the entire exam had been a setup. The party agreed to return to the castle and investigate. Asuna suggested that they let Erenn rest for a while before taking on any more quests. In Torca's central district, Slime excitedly looked around the town center, fascinated by the food. She tried tea, cake, and sandwiches, and was beyond impressed with all of them. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Erenn was pleased to see her happy, though ironically, he knew there was no way he would be getting his A-rank certification this time, especially since he was meant to have slain the spirit. But Erenn was more than happy that he had saved her instead. Erenn suggested that he and Slime come up with a name for her, especially since she was staying with him. He proposed Abigail, thinking it would be a perfectly fitting name. He explained that it was the name of a strong warrior Slime from years ago. His grandpa had told him stories about her. Everyone had made fun of her at first, but she turned out to be the only one capable of commanding Slimes. Slime loved her new name and laughed with excitement. She insisted that she would be the one to protect Erenn. Erenn thanked her for her kind words and smiled, but moments later he heard a strange voice from behind. Armano seemingly appeared out of nowhere, interested in talking to Erenn as Abigail hid behind him. Erenn guessed that Armano had remained quiet in the guild because there were others around. He followed his rival to a quieter spot, where Armano turned around and bowed to both Erenn and Abigail, offering an apology. He admitted that he had known Abigail was suffering, but still saw her as a target and acted selfishly. Despite Erenn's lingering anger, Armano continued, explaining that his party, Tempest, was made up of his childhood friends. He came from a distinguished family of arcana casters and had always been treated favorably, even in his village. But his two friends were the complete opposite, born into poverty and driven by ambition. Armano explained that they had just been kids with the same dream who hit it off, and that's all it was meant to be. He spoke of the challenges they faced, how they were ridiculed by others for their commoner background. Then, an incident occurred that left one of his friends badly hurt. From that day forward, Armano made up his mind. He swore he would make them an S-rank party no matter what. As long as he could achieve that, he didn't care what happened to Abigail. Erenn began to feel sympathy for Armano, admitting that they too had only taken the exam for certification. But even so, Erenn said, he still knew right from wrong, and he couldn't bring himself to abandon Abigail. He then asked how Armano had found out that Abigail was a spirit. Armano explained that he had been told by a talisman. At first, he couldn't believe it either. He had never seen a spirit that could grant skills to humans. But after seeing a bird and a wolf use the same kind of power during a transformation, it started to make sense. Erenn appeared somewhat understanding of Armano's situation. When Armano extended his hand, Erenn took it and shook it confidently. They introduced themselves properly, and Erenn asked what other techniques an arcana caster could use. Armano explained that he primarily used talismans. Erenn, clearly intrigued, asked if Armano could teach him how he made his barrier so resistant. Armano smiled before asking what class Erenn belonged to. When Erenn told him he was a Tamer, Armano chuckled and said there was no way a Tamer like Erenn should exist. He then warned Erenn to be careful, because the same person who had given him the demon-sealing talisman and told him about the spirit had also hired him to defeat Erenn. Erenn, of course, was shaken by the revelation, but Armano said he needed to return to his team and suggested they meet again at the Adventurers Guild in the evening. Meanwhile, Armano reunited with his party as they wandered through a plain land. His teammates commented that they were getting a little too far from Torka and couldn't afford to fall behind Erenn and his group. Determined to reach A rank this time, they raced off together. But out of nowhere, the party was ambushed, and one of Armano's teammates was slain right in front of him. Liza and Armano stood ready to defend themselves. The stranger had seemingly appeared out of nowhere and killed Johann in an instant. Armano shouted, demanding to know why the stranger was attacking them. Liza began to cry, clearly terrified after witnessing Johann's fall. Armano pressed on, knowing he would be finished if the stranger's powerful blade struck him. He erected a barrier, focused entirely on getting Liza out of this mess alive. But Liza, deeply worried for her teammate, refused to abandon him despite his desperate pleas for her to alert the guild. Finally, Liza began to run, instructed to take care of Tempest as well. She turned back and shouted that Armano could do it, even as he struggled to hold the figure back for a moment longer. But the stranger eventually overpowered him and forced Armano to his knees. Still, Armano clung to a philosophy that a noble sacrifice was worthwhile if it allowed even one comrade to escape. The stranger, revealing herself to be a woman with long, light hair, asked why he had lost to Erenn, and then Armano understood it was the talisman. The woman told him that it was a shame how things turned out, but thanks to him, this elemental master had acquired yet another skill. She tied Armano up and began to lecture him. With no other choice, he listened closely. She spoke of how she had once believed they could have reached A rank together, perhaps even become rivals. But now, she said, their deaths would serve as essential nourishment for this elemental master. Meanwhile, Liza sprinted back toward town, desperately searching for help. She eventually found Erenn in the streets and begged him to come. Time was running out for Armano, still bound and at the mercy of the mysterious woman. She told him she would listen to his final words. Armano, defiant, told her that Erenn would be the one to despise her the most. He continued with quiet confidence, saying, "You don't get to decide if we become your fodder. That decision is ours to make." And then the decision was made. The skill transfer began. The girl was shocked by Armano's decision to transfer skills. Why would he give a transfer talisman to another talisman user? Meanwhile, in Torka, Liza caused a commotion as onlookers gathered, asking what had happened. She collapsed to the ground in hysteria, and Erenn gently told her to calm down. When Liza looked up, her eyes were filled with tears as she told everyone that Johann had been murdered. Erenn immediately jumped to his feet. At this rate, Armano would be next. Liza explained that the talisman user's spirit core had been transferred to the elemental master. Erenn asked who was responsible and where they were. Liza guessed it was a man and told him the incident had occurred in the grasslands just beyond Torka's east gate. Erenn recognized the area. It was the same one he had passed through before arriving in Torka. He grabbed Abby, and they began making their way there. Liza insisted on going with them, but she couldn't even move her legs. Erenn called back, telling her to report everything to the guild instead. As he ran, Erenn activated the great wings of the phoenix, which swept him off his feet. He shot across the landscape with the speed of lightning, heading toward the grasslands in search of the enemy. When he landed, he could sense Armano's magical power coming from a specific direction. He told Abby to follow carefully. Then he sensed two sources of magical energy. One belonged to Johann, but before he could react, Erenn stumbled into a pool of Johann's ashes. He collapsed to the ground, trying desperately to trigger his regeneration, but the trauma was too great and the spell bounced back. The rest of the blood belonged to Armano. He lay there trembling and knew with absolute certainty he would never forgive the one responsible. Erenn returned to the Adventurers Guild, walking slowly up to Liza. He bowed his head and gently presented her with Armano's belongings. He hadn't been able to save him. Liza looked down at the items before breaking down into tears. She cried out both Armano's and Johann's names, apologizing through sobs that she couldn't save them in time. Erenn quietly explained that his regeneration skills hadn't worked. It was the first time they had failed. He knew he had to uncover the truth. He wasn't about to let the enemy claim 2 lives and leave no answers behind. He told Liza they needed to catch the one responsible, then helped her to her feet. Together, they made their way to the guildmaster's office. Erenn knocked on the door and was greeted by Karen, Ran, and Asuna. They had already heard of the incident and asked if he and Liza were all right. Just then, Jade, the adventurer's guildmaster, stepped out. It seemed he had been expecting them. Jade thanked them for coming. Erenn bowed respectfully as Jade said he had already received the report and had heard about what happened with Tempest. He asked Erenn to give his account. Erenn began explaining what had happened to Johann and Armano. He told the guildmaster that he had gone to the plains, followed their magical signatures, and found only their ashes. Jade examined the ashes as Liza wept. Asuna stepped forward and gently reassured Liza that if she hadn't returned, they might never have found the evidence at all. Asuna also reported her concerns about the old castle. When she journeyed back to it, the entire structure was gone, reduced to ash. Erenn was stunned to hear that the castle had vanished. Jade then asked Liza to tell her side of the story. He recalled that she said they had been walking across the plains when they heard a sound from behind. When they turned around, Johann had already vanished, reduced to ash. Liza nodded. Jade asked if the attacker was a man and whether she remembered any other details. Liza responded that he had black hair, appeared older, and carried something resembling a spear. Then Jade held up a photograph and asked if she recognized the man in it. Liza immediately pointed him out. It was the man who had attacked them. It turned out the attacker was Sir Silver of Triumph. Someone Asuna knew well. She was shocked. Silver shouldn't have had any connection to Tempest. And more importantly, he was a spearman. Asuna had never heard of a spearman being capable of turning someone to ash. Jade admitted that ever since Triumph had filed a fake report of Erenn and Asuna's deaths, he had been investigating them. One by one, every last member of Triumph had vanished without a trace. That was why he had the ash. It had been collected from a street where all inhabitants had mysteriously disappeared. Jade needed an adventurer to investigate 3 key concerns and determine if they were connected. Erenn stepped forward and suggested that his party take the mission, but Jade hesitated. He insisted that Erenn was still just a kid and the mission was too dangerous. Erenn explained that it was Armano who had first told him about the spirits, and that Armano had been hired to harm him. This revelation took Jade by surprise. Erenn went on to say that Armano had received a magic sealing talisman, which explained why his seal had been so powerful. He then recalled Armano's final words, that the stranger was disguised beneath a cloak, and their identity couldn't be discovered. But of course, Erenn had defeated Armano. That, he realized, could be the reason Tempest was targeted afterward. Erenn offered a theory. If Silver had no personal reason to attack Tempest, then perhaps the client and Silver were connected. That meant the true target was him. The room fell silent as everyone pieced it together. All signs pointed to one truth. Erenn was the real target all along. Ran stepped forward without hesitation. She vowed to find the person responsible and destroy them. Karen scolded Ran for transforming at such an awkward moment. Jade, deep in thought, finally admitted he had been wondering about something ever since he received the report from Erenn's certification exam. It wasn't just the incident that bothered him, it was Erenn's class. During the A-rank certification exam, Erenn had tamed a variant slime that was believed to be a monster. Before that, he had only tamed a wolf while working as a former handyman for Triumph. So how had he developed his skills so quickly? Erenn realized he couldn't keep it a secret any longer. He had already planned to report it to the guildmaster. Turning to Karen, Ran, and Abigail, he asked them to reveal their humanoid forms, and they did so. Erenn then told Jade the truth. This was possible because he was a spirit user. Inside the office, Erenn explained everything. He spoke about how he had gone from being a tamer to a spirit user, and about the existence of high-class spirits. Jade was clearly amazed by the story, though he gently told Erenn that he should have come to him sooner. Still, he showed understanding. It might have been dangerous for Erenn to share that kind of information earlier. Everything began to make sense to Jade, and he was glad to accept Erenn. But Liza was surprised at how quickly Erenn agreed to take on the mission, especially after she had witnessed the tragedy with her own party. Erenn reassured her that he wasn't afraid. Standing by and doing nothing felt worse than facing the danger head-on. And if he really was the one being targeted, then he had to take action. Liza, still overwhelmed with guilt for leaving her comrades behind, asked if she could join the quest as well. However, the guildmaster was hesitant to let someone so young and inexperienced get involved. But Liza was determined. She remembered how Armano had given her a chance, and now she wanted to use that chance to honor him and Johann. Erenn promised that he would ensure Liza's safe return to the guild. He swore to uncover the truth no matter what. In that moment, the guildmaster granted Erenn a provisional A-rank adventurer certification, provided he cooperated with the guild. Erenn was overwhelmed with joy that Jade believed in him. Jade then announced that he would entrust the entire party with the investigation. If they captured Silver or any remaining Triumph members, they were to bring them back to the guild alive. He instructed the party to gather at the north gate of Torca the following morning. The meeting was dismissed, and the party knew it was time to begin preparing. Back in town, Asuna asked Erenn whether he had been granted the skill of an arcana caster. Erenn explained that the talisman Armano had used was a family heirloom. It looked like a blank sheet of paper on both sides, and didn't appear to be anything special, but it worked so long as it belonged to the user. Asuna asked to borrow it for a while, explaining that she needed to look for something. She urged the others to continue preparing for the upcoming expedition. Meanwhile, Rand asked Erenn if it was really okay to buy so many items. Erenn assured her that Abby had enough storage space. He went to pay while Abby and Rand stayed behind. The two introduced themselves properly and laughed about how Erenn had named them both. As Erenn paid for the items, he couldn't stop thinking about the ashes. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Rand tossing Abby around in her mouth, scolding her to behave. The next day, the party gathered at the north gate of Torca. They all looked tired from the emotional events of the day before. Liza came to see them off, and Erenn walked up to check if she was all right. Suddenly, a stranger jumped in front of him, ready to strike. Erenn stumbled back but managed to draw his sword just in time. The stranger scolded him, saying he was slow and unprepared for combat. He told Erenn that although he might have the ultimate power of a spirit user, he still lacked the experience to use it properly. Erenn was completely defeated by the stranger, who coldly told him he stood no chance against Silver. Rand bolted to her master's defense using the power of wind. The stranger turned on her as well, criticizing her for rushing in without a moment's hesitation. With ease, he flicked her aside, advising her to better understand her own abilities. A cloud of smoke erupted around them as the stranger asked the party what they would do in such a situation. Liza coughed while Karen shouted, demanding to know what the mysterious gas was. The stranger scolded Erenn again for putting too much faith in Rand's sense of smell, as she struggled to come up with a new plan. Who was this guy? Asuna told Rand to calm down, watching her growl at the stranger. She then asked him directly if he was the one assigned to accompany them on the investigation. The stranger nodded and replied that it had been a while since he last saw her. Karen looked at Asuna in surprise and asked if she actually knew who this intense man was. Asuna smiled and introduced him as Lucas, another S-rank adventurer who usually worked solo. Erenn asked Lucas what his profession was, and Lucas responded that he was a sword saint. Both Liza and Erenn winced at the title. Asuna added that Lucas was also the man who had mentored Zack, which caused Erenn to break into a cold sweat. Still, he knew he had to swallow his pride. He was doing this for Johan and Armano, and despite his harsh tone, Lucas was offering helpful advice. Lucas told the group that he had already been briefed by the guildmaster and with that proposed a plan. Erenn, Liza, and Abigail would accompany him, while Karen and Rand would go with Asuna. Ron shrieked at the suggestion. This stranger had just attacked her master and now he wanted to split the group? But it was clear Lucas didn't value anyone's opinion but his own. He explained that he had access to specific information about the quest and splitting up was necessary to follow multiple leads. Rand wasn't having it. She still remembered how Zack had once abandoned his comrades without hesitation. How could she be expected to trust his mentor? Lucas growled back, warning her to comply or he would be the one to put her in her place. Ron was clearly upset, but Lucas reassured her that he didn't abandon his allies halfway. It was hard to hear, but deep down, she knew the mentor was right. Erenn placed a comforting hand on Rand's shoulder and told her everything would be all right. Abby also stepped in to help, handing Rand a small toy and explaining that she had spent the last few days shadowing Erenn. She wanted to help him in any way she could. Liza, motivated by the memory of Armano, was determined to prevent another tragedy. Rand looked at Abby, realizing that the little one was beginning to mimic many of their behaviors. Was she changing? Evolving? Rand smiled and told Abby she would be assigning her homework as the party's youngest member. She asked Abby to hold out her hands and listen carefully. Protect Erenn the best you can, she said, and try to complete the investigation. As a fellow high spirit, Rand knew she had no choice but to trust Abby. Besides, her abilities could prove invaluable. Do you think you can do it? Rand asked. I can, Abby answered confidently. Rand smiled, letting Abby know that she was counting on her. Erenn then told Abby it was time to go. Asuna thanked Rand for her support. The party was focused, determined, and united. They were ready to capture the enemy and uncover the truth behind the growing chain of mysterious incidents. So it was confirmed. The investigation was open to find Silver of the party Triumph, and any other missing members who might appear. They also sought to uncover what had happened in the town of Rochelle, where the residents had mysteriously turned to ash. Karen, Rand, and Asuna formed the first team, while Erenn, Abigail, Liza, and Lucas made up the second. Once a day at 6 p.m., Erenn would teleport to Asuna's team to share information and deliver supplies. Asuna's team began the investigation in Rochelle. They gathered as much information as they could, but one piece stood out. Merchants passing through the Neva forest had started seeing clumps of ash scattered along their route. It was unclear if the ash came from humans, monsters, or even inanimate objects like an old castle. The merchants believed someone with the ability to turn things into ash was occupying the forest. Erenn's team arrived in the forest and quickly began to suspect that it was Silver who had turned Tempest to ash. They knew that capturing the person responsible would be their first real chance at solving the mystery. Still, there was hesitation. Silver destroying an entire village was hard to believe, and since they didn't know where he was, there was always the chance that he might be the one to make contact first. Lucas warned that the worst-case scenario would be if Silver's former party members attacked them, because in that case, they likely wouldn't stand a chance. He declared that the whole party would undergo training and preparation. The forest, after all, was home to many monsters. Lucas turned to Erenn and asked if he understood what he was getting at. The reason for separating Ran and Erenn during the Ash search was that they were supposed to hunt monsters. The first to appear was a family of Cyclops. Liza and Erenn fought as best they could, but more kept coming. Liza struggled, thinking how easily her old team could have handled them. Now she felt like she was fighting alone. Erenn helped her by launching his Phoenix Fire Arrow, an overwhelming success. He acquired a Cyclops Spirit Core, body enhancements, and a Wood Element skill. He asked Liza if she was okay, and she reassured him that she was. She was genuinely taken aback by the power of the arrow. It turned out that a monster den was the perfect training ground, and Erenn seized the opportunity to acquire new skills and level up. The Phoenix Fire Arrow was immensely powerful and especially effective against swarms or slow-moving monsters. The party arrived at the Neva Forest cabin, where the investigation was set to resume the next morning. Lucas sat down with Erenn and Liza to hear their reports. Liza stammered, saying there were a lot of monsters, more than she expected, even for a monster den. Erenn added that the variety of species seemed skewed. He had defeated 46 tree spirits, 32 blue boars, 6 trolls, and 10 cyclopes. Far more cyclopes than he had anticipated. He also noted that for someone with a skill to turn anything into ash, these monsters wouldn't be a threat. In fact, they might even be convenient. Erenn mentioned a cave that looked like the perfect place to hide something, or test something. Liza felt inadequate. The boys were able to think strategically even while fighting, whereas she had forgotten that the whole point of the mission was investigative. She knew she had to step up. The team spent the rest of their free time training. Lucas closely observed Liza and Erenn's abilities. Now, all that remained was to test themselves against an S-rank adventurer. Liza reminded Lucas that Silver himself was an S-rank adventurer, and this might be their best chance to understand just how strong one really was. Liza was fiercely determined to defeat Lucas. She used her skills, including Shadow Crown and Light Blade, but Lucas easily countered her attacks. There was no doubt, Lucas was beyond anything she had ever faced before. After helping her adjust her scarf, he advised her that trying to anticipate his moves wouldn't work. He pointed out that Liza relied heavily on teamwork, and now she needed to adapt to fighting on her own. Whether she had a team or not, she needed to develop her own skills and be able to stand independently. After all, he explained, it's better to have 3 people operating at 100%, a combined total of 300%, than a 3-person party that only reaches a fraction of that through reliance on coordination. He asked her bluntly, did she really have what it takes to be an adventurer, even on her own? Liza was rattled by his words, but she stood tall and confidently declared that she did want to be an adventurer. Lucas, however, teased her, saying that if it had been Asuna in her place, she wouldn't be like this. Liza thought back to the exam. If Asuna's skills had been sealed, she had believed she could win. But she remembered clearly how quickly she was humbled when Asuna knocked her off her broom. She also remembered Asuna calling her a mage. As fellow magic users honing their abilities, it had felt like an unspoken connection. But no matter what skills she had, Liza realized she needed to be prepared for any kind of situation. Otherwise, she would always be in danger. Her heart sank. She knew deep down she was still struggling without Armano or Johan. Erenn, however, quickly stepped in to support her, promising that they would uncover the truth behind their deaths. Lucas observed them closely. Erenn and Liza were the same age, but their reactions couldn't be more different. Liza's emotional response was expected, but Erenn was calm, not scared, not hesitant. Beyond the pain of losing his comrades, there was something else fueling his resolve. Something deep. It made him ideal for fighting monsters. But what else did it mean? Erenn continued practicing with his Phoenix Fire Arrow, but Lucas scolded him. If his opponent was an S-rank adventurer with experience, knowledge, and raw physical power, then timing was everything. Otherwise, the arrow could simply be dodged. Erenn quickly realized this challenge. He couldn't even find an opening to fire. Lucas dodged his attacks with ease, and Erenn's stamina was draining fast. Erenn tried the Tree Spirit skill. Lucas evaded it. Then he used Phoenix Wingbeat to force Lucas back. Finally, he tested a new ability, the Arcana Caster skill, which summoned a magical barrier. Liza's eyes widened. Was that Armano's barrier? She remembered how Erenn had once wanted to buy an Arcana Caster's talisman, and she had been the one to tell him where to get it. Armano had used one too, but it had taken Armano months to master that technique. The fighting style Erenn was developing was powerful but extremely draining. As he battled, he suddenly felt Zack's aura radiating through Lucas. Lucas realized that Erenn's drive didn't just come from the unforgivable loss of his comrades. It came from the time he had spent as a gopher, quietly observing, learning, internalizing their spirit. There was nothing wrong with that. Lucas understood. An adventurer must always hunger for more if they wish to reach their full potential. And with that, he offered Erenn an encouraging grin and cheered him on. "Come on," he said. "Show me you can beat me." Lucas was fully supportive of Erenn pushing himself to reach his full potential. The two fought on, this time against each other, each driven by a shared passion to uncover the truth behind the mystery. Eventually, Erenn's magical barrier gave in. Lucas pointed out that he could feel Erenn's magic being drained through his sword. Normally, the Wind God's sword could probably cut Erenn's own blade in two. During the certification exam, Lucas had used a magic sealing tag to allow his magic to swell to dangerous levels. But now, the opposite was happening. The more magic Erenn used, the greater Lucas's advantage. Lucas asked if Erenn was planning to sheath his sword and fire a phoenix arrow instead. But Erenn stood his ground, activating his body enhancement ability. Lucas watched closely, wondering if those flames truly originated from the Wind God's sword. Before they could continue, both heard an angry voice yelling at them. Karen burst in, clearly frustrated. She scolded them. It was already past 6 p.m. and she had been worried about why they hadn't shown up for the meeting. Lucas looked down and realized his sword was warped, and there was a burn on his hand. He turned to Karen and asked if everything was all right with her group. She didn't respond. It was obvious that she had just been worried about Lucas. Meanwhile, with the other team, Ran walked quietly beside Asuna through the forest, hoping to find some clue. Asuna couldn't help but wonder how Erenn and the others were doing. Anxiety crept in. Was it really okay to show them? The town of Rochelle was isolated, surrounded by dense forest, with no nearby towns or villages. Karen had thought it best for Erenn to see it for himself, while Asuna and the wolf familiar scouted the perimeter. The wolf's investigation confirmed their worst fear. The village was filled with the remains of both humans and animals. When Erenn arrived, he gulped at the sight of the wasteland. The guildmaster had warned him, but the devastation was far worse than he had anticipated. He couldn't believe that one person could have caused such destruction. Liza's expression suddenly darkened. Erenn noticed and called out to her, concerned, but she didn't respond. Instead, Liza felt a sudden pull, an intuition guiding her toward a nearby home. Inside, she saw a table set with half-eaten food. It looked as if the family had been there just moments ago. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her ears. "Hurry up or it'll get cold." A flashback hit her. She was back with Armano and Johan, the three of them eating dinner together. She imagined what life would be like if things had stayed normal. They would be there with her, just like always. They should be here, she thought. Back then, if she had possessed the overwhelming power of Erenn, or the courage to fight back like Asuna, maybe she could have stopped it. Maybe she could have killed the one responsible for her family's deaths. Tears welled up in her eyes. Why? Why would someone do this? They hadn't done anything to him. This was not the kind of thing an S-rank adventurer should be capable of. S-rank adventurers were meant to be symbols of strength, admired by all who saw them. They were supposed to be the ideal all others aspired to. But whoever did this was something else entirely. Liza knew she would never forget this feeling for the rest of her life. Erenn came to check on her, sensing something was wrong. Liza confessed that she wanted the ones responsible to suffer just as much as she had. She hesitated, wondering if Erenn would try to talk her out of it. "Are you going to say I shouldn't kill them?" she asked. "That a life filled with hatred is nothing but a miserable one?" But Erenn didn't flinch. "Your childhood friends were murdered," he said quietly. "Wanting to kill the one responsible is only natural. When it comes to fuel for getting stronger, there's no such thing as good or evil." Liza already understood that the goal was to capture the perpetrators alive and uncover the truth, but that didn't mean her anger had to disappear. She turned to Erenn, her voice steady. "Tell me everything, about every single member of Triumph." She remembered how Lucas had seen something in Zack. That meant Erenn must remember the details, fighting styles, behavior, habits, anything that could give them an edge. Erenn reached into his bag and placed something into Liza's hands. A detailed record of Triumph's battle history and member characteristics. "I don't know how helpful it'll be," he said, "but I want you to have it, so that next time you don't hesitate." Liza looked down at the records, then back at Erenn. "I won't," she said. "Not anymore." The group returned to the Niva Forest cabin. Lucas noticed the determination in both Liza and Erenn and appreciated their renewed focus. He gave Liza specific advice. She needed to analyze her opponent's movements more carefully and anticipate their attacks. She had powerful light and dark attribute magic, along with enhancement skills, abilities she couldn't afford to let go to waste. As for Erenn, Lucas told him to keep acquiring and mastering as many skills as possible, especially his SSS rank skill. He had to learn to control its overwhelming power. The rest, Lucas said, they would have to figure out for themselves. The Phoenix Flame now surrounded the Wind God's sword, allowing for a more flexible combat style than relying solely on flaming arrows. Against skilled adventurers capable of dodging, using the sword directly might be even more effective. Lucas, notably, had not used a single attack skill from his Sword Saint class. It seemed he didn't yet see Erenn as someone who required that level of effort. That didn't stop Erenn. He continued to train with everything he had, determined to grow stronger. Liza matched his intensity, giving her all in battle against the Cyclopes. As they moved deeper into the Dorset region, cries for help rang out through the trees. There were still survivors. Liza rushed forward, kneeling beside the first one they found. The man was barely conscious. He looked up at her and pleaded, "Please, go find the others. They're still out there." "Where?" Liza asked quickly. "In front of the cave," he whispered. Liza and Abby agreed to bring the injured man back to the cabin for treatment. Meanwhile, Lucas and Erenn sprinted off toward the cave. Then Erenn stopped. He stood frozen, eyes wide with shock at what he saw ahead. Erenn was presented with the first monster he needed to overcome. This time it was one he found familiar. It was a subspecies of the Cyclops he had encountered in the dungeon. He studied the creature. It looked slightly different from the ones he had fought before. Erenn watched as the Cyclops targeted an abandoned carriage. The horses scattered in fear, but one wasn't fast enough. The monster turned it to ash. Then another voice cried out. A man limped toward Erenn, completely helpless. Lucas joined the fight, helping Erenn confront the fierce Cyclops. He pointed out that its movements had slowed significantly. Erenn struck the beast and it reeled back in pain, but the blow wasn't fatal, just as Lucas had suspected. Before the group left Torca, Jade had warned Lucas that the dungeon boss was believed to be a Cyclops, but what they found there had been unexpected, an entirely unfamiliar species. And they hadn't come alone. The Cyclops had moved in a pack. None of their usual attacks had worked. Eventually, through coordinated effort and the power of the Phoenix's flaming arrow, they had brought the beast down. The spirit core of the Cyclops subspecies was secured. Lucas gave Erenn a glance of approval before they turned back. Meanwhile, Liza and Abby were leading the villagers toward the forest entrance. Their priority was getting the injured to safety. They feared running into more monsters, but Liza stayed confident. They would make it. She reassured herself that nothing mattered more than protecting the people now. Then came a sudden strange sound. Liza gasped. The trees were turning to ash, and something hit her. It looked like bullet casings. She recognized them immediately. Silver had always preferred using strange, custom-made weapons, black market guns, far more advanced than the typical types found across the region. As Liza began to fall, her thoughts flickered back. She remembered one key thing about those weapons. They could fire in rapid succession. The bullets came rapidly, and Liza needed to think fast. The gunman was getting closer and closer, raising his weapon. They knew that if even one shot hit her, she would turn to ash. The gunman decided it would be best to keep firing at random, knowing that trying to block the bullets would be completely useless. It was then that Liza jumped up, dodging the gunfire. She was always up for a game of tag. With a swift move, she slimed the gunman, forcing him to his feet. Thanks to Doggy's muscle training homework, she made it just in time. Before they had left for the investigation, Rand told Abby that she was the only one who could use transformation magic, and that it could serve as a distraction. Rand asked her to protect them with her power as a fellow spirit, reminding her that turning into bits of ash was harder than taking on a human form. Abby did her best to protect them, expelling slime in all directions. She continued to hold back the gunman until Rand finished him off using her Shadow Claw skill. They soon recognized the gunman as Musketeer Gil, an adventurer who had once been in the same party as Silver. Liza quickly realized that it couldn't have been Silver alone. Slime had transformed into her, pretending she had been shot. And thanks to their storage ability, both she and the injured man were able to hide. They even managed to steal most of the enemy's ammunition. Liza called for Slime to store more supplies, and it became clear that Musketeer Gil shared the same ashen skill as Silver. Liza fought back bravely, but suddenly the gunmen vanished. Erenn called out to her, explaining that Gil possessed both strengthening magic and stealth. The stealth ability allowed him to erase his presence and snipe from hiding. Their options were either to eliminate all blind spots or find a way to disrupt his vision. His bullets should be running low too. Suddenly, Erenn shouted for Liza to watch her right. She dodged quickly but knew she needed to test how much she could do with her attack magic. She wasn't as skilled as Erenn or Asuna, but she had to keep going. The gunman finally ran out of ammo, and Liza knew this was her chance. She activated her skill boost, and the spirit user's power began to surge. An enormous protective sphere surrounded her, deflecting every bullet that hit. Erenn joined in, activating the Arcana caster's spirit core and forming the ultimate barrier. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Liza saw something. "Armano!" she breathed. A heavy thud followed and everything went silent. She had found him. The party, while investigating the ashification incident in the forest of Neva, was interrupted by an evolved Cyclops. While Lucas and Erenn fought to subjugate it, Liza and Abigail were ambushed by Gil, a gunman from the S-Rank party Triumph. At that desperate moment, the one who appeared before them was someone they never expected. Erenn launched his ultimate barrier, and thanks to Liza's skill enhancement, the barrier was upgraded to its highest level. Erenn knew he could never have reached such strength with his own power alone. Not only could it block an S-Rank adventurer's bullets, but its range was even greater than Armano's barrier. If Armano were still alive, it felt as though his spirit was living on through Erenn, representing the future of spellcasters that might one day come to pass. Liza saw how fast Gil was moving and knew they needed to act quickly. If they were to stop him, it had to be now. But a sudden growl from nearby froze her in her tracks. She found herself face to face with not one but 3 Cyclopes. To make matters worse, they appeared to be evolved forms. She had no idea how that was even possible, but she didn't hesitate. Determined, Liza told Slime that they could capture one and turn it into the guild. She swiftly activated her Shadowclaw skill, promising not to let the Cyclops interfere with Erenn's fight. She called out to him, warning that Gil possessed replication as well, and that if he got hit by a bullet, he would turn to ash. Erenn immediately understood what that meant. Gil had been granted more than just the Ash and Ruin skill. Liza told Erenn to leave everything to her, and Erenn replied that he was counting on her. He was certain now. There was someone or something that could grant multiple skills, and that person was Gil. Erenn finally came face to face with Gil and told him that he had heard from the Guildmaster that Triumph had gone missing. He demanded to know what happened to the rest of the party and why Gil was doing this. But no matter how much he tried to reason with him, Gil didn't respond. It was as if he had no will of his own, fighting only to kill. Erenn noticed strange marks on Gil's right arm and wondered if removing them might bring him back to normal. He activated his stealth skill and reminded Gil that he always hid to the right. Gil chuckled, saying he had never thought about it before. A phoenix arrow suddenly streaked across the air, followed by a rising wall of thorns. In an instant, Gil was completely bound by the vines. Erenn raised his sword, promising to sever the granted skills once and for all. With one decisive strike, Gil was defeated. Coughing up blood, Gil looked broken. Erenn could only wonder what was going to happen next. Was Gil's gun skill truly Ash and Ruin, or was it something out of control? Gil looked at his weapon and muttered that it had been incredibly useful. The others told him that if he was going to rely on such a dangerous weapon, they wouldn't allow him to stay in their group. Gil understood. He explained that he had bought the gun off the black market, but that he also had his own skills. When he asked if they wanted to see them, one adventurer told him to leave before anything went wrong. Gil recounted how he had once quit the army to become an adventurer. One of the men asked if he was the gunslinger who left the military and rose to S-rank status. Gil confirmed it. Seeing his potential, the adventurer asked him to demonstrate his shooting. Together, they hunted a giant bear. The adventurer asked if aiming for the head would have been better, but Gil explained that with enhancement magic, the heart was a surer target. The bear's skull was too thick after all. Impressed, the adventurer asked if Gil would join his party. Gil asked if he was serious, even with his strange weapon. The adventurer told him he didn't care as long as Gil could handle himself. Gil's eyes lit up as he accepted the offer, asking for the man's name. From that moment on, he decided he would follow him forever. Now, lying on the ground, battered and bloodied, Gil could hardly believe where he had ended up. Erenn knelt beside him, asking why things had to turn out this way. Someone mentioned Zack's name, but another quickly replied that Zack wasn't there. Erenn pressed for answers, shaking Gil's body. Gil struggled to speak, saying that only a spirit user could stop him. Erenn froze. How did Gil know that he was a spirit user? Only the guildmaster and the members of the investigation party knew that. Gil coughed, telling Erenn to hurry. Silver was probably heading for Rochelle. He admitted that he had been ordered to kill them all. Erenn demanded to know who gave the order, but it was too late. Those were Gil's last words before he passed out. Erenn hit the ground in frustration. Gil had barely been conscious before that, and Erenn could only assume that Silver was in the same state. He recalled Gil's words, that someone had sent him to kill them, and realized that this same person had once hired Armano to defeat him during his A-rank exam. Once Armano was no longer useful, they sent Silver to finish the job. Erenn clenched his fists. Whoever was behind this treated people like disposable pawns, and he was not going to let them get away with it. He stored Gil's body away and was soon met by Abigail, who told him she had captured the Cyclops. She asked if he was alright. Liza arrived, asking what happened to Gil, and Erenn told her he had placed him into storage. He still sensed Gil's faint presence, but couldn't believe he had actually defeated an S-rank adventurer. Liza smiled, relieved that she had also survived Gil's ambush. Lucas commended both of them, saying they had grown much faster than he expected. Erenn thanked him, while Liza, surprised to be praised, chuckled and told Erenn she was still nowhere near his level. Lucas urged them to head toward Rochelle. Liza asked if Asuna and the others were already there, but Erenn's mind was on Silver. He was determined to uncover the truth behind everything, and to make sure everyone made it back alive. Before Gil's arrest in the forest near the town of Rochelle, Karen was busy following a trail of blood. She knew that letting Erenn and the others go was not an option, but the trail led away from Rochelle, and she had no idea what was happening. She should hurry and regroup with Asuna and the others, yet she could not shake the thought that there might be survivors who had not turned to ash. She flew over the wasteland, noticing how overgrown the forest had become. It felt like something might come out at night. Suddenly, some movement rustled a nearby bush. She shouted, asking if anyone was there, and then she saw something she did not expect. She hurried to Asuna and Ran, who asked if there were more Cyclops ahead. Ran said no, but she sensed human scent, 2 people by their smell. Ran seemed to have smelled the scent somewhere before. Then Asuna looked up and saw a girl. It was Claire, the Torca Adventurer Guild receptionist. Asuna smiled, glad to see a familiar face. Claire explained she had been chased by a monster and had run here, though she had helped deal with the Cyclops. She asked what Asuna and the others were doing here. Claire said the townspeople had been turned to ash, words that made Asuna go pale. Claire added that they had planned to pass through Rochelle on the way back to the guild, but a variant of the Cyclops attacked them. It looked just like the one Asuna and the others had faced in the dungeon. Asuna's eyes widened. The monster from before. The one their attacks had barely scratched, had it really appeared again? Ron called Asuna's name and asked if she was alright. Asuna said she needed to focus on the information Claire had given them. That meant Silver probably did not attack the city of Rochelle. On top of that, the variant did not use steel. It had a petrification skill that turned people to ash. There were too many similarities to ignore. Asuna asked Claire if she could tell everyone in Torca what she had seen once they returned. Claire was hesitant, but Asuna reassured her she would explain everything back at the guild. For now, they needed to get Claire somewhere safe. A few moments later, Rand shouted for Asuna to come. They were in the worst possible place at the worst time. Silver appeared, axe in hand. Asuna told Rand to take Claire and run. She would stay and hold him off. She instructed them to get back to the city of Torca, knowing Claire could not make it alone. Rand hesitated, unwilling to leave Asuna alone. She would not let this end the same way it had with Armano and the others. Rand activated wind pressure and vowed to return alive. Asuna agreed, and together they left. Silver was a spear expert and a member of the S-rank party Triumph. It took one look to see he was not himself. Asuna activated Water Prison, determined to keep Silver from controlling the battlefield with his spear. If they let a spear expert keep his distance, they would be at a huge disadvantage. Asuna knew it was risky with his Ashen ability, but she would force him into close combat. Rand jumped in to attack, promising to capture Silver alive. She fought with everything she had and began to dominate the battle. Silver blocked and powered up, using brute force to cover both long and short range. Rand recognized his style and remembered his fist, and then she realized what this power really was. It was far stronger than before. Rand warned Asuna to watch out as Silver tried to strike from behind. Asuna jumped to Rand's defense and was hit. She swore under her breath and knew that killing him might be easier than taking him alive at this rate. Rand told Asuna to stay hidden. She would arrest him herself, but Asuna knew she could not let him go this time. She kept pressing, refusing to back down. Asuna's mind drifted back to when she first joined Triumph. She remembered introducing herself as a magic knight and meeting Gil first. Dina, the party mage, had teased her about being an elf, and Asuna had laughed. Silver had introduced himself as a spear expert and promised to help if she ever needed it. He had been kind to her from the start. She remembered their first huge hunt, Dina trying to collect monster scales and the party's camaraderie. Silver had once told her why he joined the party. He respected Zack's pursuit of strength. Teamwork felt more effective than working alone, and he wanted to support his family. He even showed Asuna a picture of his little girl. Asuna had told him about her dream and why she became an adventurer. Torn back to the present, Asuna remembered why she could not die. When she saw the fake death report for her and Erenn, she had been heartbroken. Everything they had gone through felt like a lie. She needed the truth, and she needed it from Silver himself. With tears in her eyes, Asuna looked straight at Silver and asked if he recognized her despite Rand's warning not to get too close. She kept calling to him, but he touched her sword to ash. Rand moved in to rescue her. She was sympathetic, knowing how much Asuna had invested in Triumph. Rand understood Asuna's urge to speak to Silver, but she also knew it was impossible now. She told Asuna not to move. They needed to either knock him out or sever his arm. Rand readied herself and for the first time in this fight felt some relief. They had finally managed to get him. Rand and Asuna scrambled to their feet. They had finally met who they needed to. A barrier formed around them as Erenn appeared suddenly. He told Rand to come quickly, asking why she was still there. Erenn explained that they got intel from Gil after capturing him, but Rand told Erenn she was not done yet. They still had not captured Silver. She looked down, feeling defeated, and said that before Lady Asuna got hurt, she should have stopped Silver. Erenn looked at her and said that with the ash skill, if he had touched her, she would have been in mortal danger. He asked Ron if she had given Abby her task. Erenn raised his sword, commanding heavenly offering. He said it was time for the wind god's soaring flight thanks to Pippi's advice. Fortunately, no one on their side was missing and they knew this was not over yet. Rand called for Abigail, telling her they would take care of the subspecies. Erenn called for both of them to begin. Erenn faced Silver and he soon realized this was the moment he had longed for. Whether he had a will of his own or not did not matter. Silver did not care either. Erenn warned Liza to be careful near Silver. Like Gil, he might have been granted other skills. Liza knew that was true, but no matter what skills he had, she would not hesitate anymore. She looked Silver in the eye and told him not to run from the barrier or from her. She rushed forward, but Silver raised his fist. They instantly recognized it as Johan's skill. Liza jumped back, annoyed, saying he was really good at getting on her last nerves. She rode her broom around Silver's head, knowing that this was not his skill, but Johan's. Liza remembered a special moment with Johan when his skill was finally complete. They talked about how if Liza could combine a single curse with it, they might become the strongest. She told Johan how much he had grown, from a boy who used to cling to her back to a real fighter. She remembered how strong Johan's punch was and how hard he worked to reach that level. Liza knew this was where it all began. For the sin of ruining both their lives, she promised to make him spend his whole life atoning. Erenn told Liza that she had good friends. He dashed forward holding the ropes, saying that he would not let it be extinguished. He activated Phoenix Wingbeat and Silver began to fall. Liza said he always overused his arms, swinging his spear around. He was always struggling with his mana and stamina consumption, which was one of his weaknesses. Silver told them he would never hand over the fighter's spirit core. Erenn faced Silver directly, telling him he stole Liza's companion. Silver did not stop. Even after becoming this powerful, he still had not woken up. He grabbed Erenn by the neck and lifted him. Erenn struggled but told him that Liza's suffering was nothing like this. He grabbed Silver's hand as Liza shouted not to let him get away. Her anger and killing intent towards Silver only made her stronger. Then she released her Karma Flame curse. She said that if he did not give up the fighter's spirit core, she would erase the one who granted it. Suddenly, an error occurred. The granted fighter's spirit core was lost. Erenn looked to see a flame. It was Johan's fighter spirit. He held it in his palms and drove his fist into the back of Silver's head. He performed a slash, sending Silver flying. He heard a voice saying he was truly magnificent. Not only could he grant skills, but he also turned a wizard's hatred into a curse. In contrast, this human, even after being granted power, was useless, especially for someone who was once the highest S-rank adventurer. The wizard's and blacksmith's spirit cores had been granted, and at this rate, Silver was in danger. A sinister magical power was forming. Erenn could not believe it was possible, the sword of the wind god with the flame of the phoenix. He shouted for it to release Silver and demanded to know who the entity was. The entity responded that he knew who Erenn was. He recognized him as the one with black hair and red eyes. He grabbed Erenn's face and said that he was nothing more than a human, ignoring his demands to reveal his name. The demon collapsed, and Erenn knew that was it. He was certain that the being who destroyed and murdered without hesitation possessed a power beyond an S-rank adventurer, and that they were the root of all evil. He called for Liza to regroup with the others. Erenn knew that this investigation was only a prologue, and that they had no choice but to face what was coming next. Meanwhile, a young girl with light hair paced around her room. She was sad that what she just saw was over, wishing she could have watched a little longer. She flopped onto her couch thinking about what she would do if those two did not look alike at all. The girl reached out to see Erenn, asking how much his collection of spirit cores had grown. Their faces when fighting were the most alike of all. She saw the entire party, the Phoenix with the fire attribute, the Divine Wolf with tribute scouting, and the Gluttony Princess with transformation abilities. She also saw the Cyclops, Sevelbat, and Blue Boar alongside the Talisman and Brawler. The girl could hardly believe they had pulled it off, combining the sword of the wind god with the all-consuming flames of the Phoenix. On top of that, Erenn had managed to draw out new powers from a mage. She looked at Gil and Silver on the floor and called them hopeless. Their bodies could not handle even a few enchantments. Next time she wanted someone with pure and noble magical power, an epic adventurer who never showed weakness. But they had finally revealed an opening, the bonds they forged as a party, even after one of them had been cast aside. The next day at Torca Adventurers Guild, Erenn spoke with a few adventurers who thanked him. They told him that if he had not saved them in the forest, they could not imagine what would have happened. Just thinking about it was horrifying. Erenn knew how wrong it was for the people to be targeted, and he knew they had to stop this from happening again. Erenn entered the guildmaster's office and was greeted warmly. The master thanked everyone for their efforts in the investigation, especially Erenn for bringing Liza back safely. Erenn thanked him for his words. The master continued, saying that normally this questioning would be held publicly, but the matter was now classified. The questioning of the two Triumph members, Silver and Gil, would begin immediately. Silver and Gil bowed, admitting that what was done could not be undone. Everything that happened would be shared truthfully. Asuna turned to Gil and asked why he was the one crying. Gil wept, saying he was sorry but could not stop it. Silver placed his hand on Gil's shoulder and said he would explain. He said it all went back to the Cyclops' subjugation in the dungeon. He remembered seeing the others escape while Erenn and Asuna were left behind. Erenn said he would act as a decoy, so they let him. Then they were told to go in and save him, but he never came back. Silver said that the weak needed to see what hell was like, that they were powerless because they were weak. So he claimed Erenn was lost to an unfortunate accident, protecting Triumph's record. They reported that an unknown monster appeared and their attacks did not work, forcing them to retreat. They were told to follow orders to keep their S-rank status. But was that real strength, they were asked? They remembered the Cyclops monster and how someone who would abandon a mere chore boy dared to speak of strength. They just did not want to admit the truth, that they were weak. Memories came flooding back of Zack crawling helplessly across the floor. What was he doing? An S-rank adventurer flinching at the sight of a monster, watching a low-rank chore boy step up, then abandoning him and filing a false report. The girl was stunned by his foolishness. Zack told her to shut up, but she did not stop. She asked him about the monster he feared so much and offered to show it to him. Dina gasped when she saw Erenn taming the phoenix. The girl told them that adventurers could only receive the blessing of one spirit, but an elemental master could receive countless blessings. She asked Zack if he wondered why it was not him, saying his behavior came from jealousy. That was why he never accepted Erenn. She told him that to become stronger he needed negative emotions. No matter how much he struggled, he still desired power. She held out her hand and offered him her own, introducing herself as the Spirit Monarch, the one who reigned over all spirits. She said she could not change his class, but she could grant him power. Dina begged him to stop, thinking it was a trap. He was afraid, but tempted. They explained how they tried to follow, but were separated almost immediately. They saw Silver granted the powers of Ash, but slowly losing himself. The monster was the one who attacked the town of Rochelle. But why attack innocent people? The one who turned Tempest to ash was Silver. Gil sobbed again, saying he saw the whole thing. Lisa witnessed Johann's death and he was sure it was the same for Armano. The master said that regarding the attack on Rochelle, one of their receptionists had also witnessed it. Ron asked if they had spoken to the receptionist, but the master said the matter was confidential. Gil said he was ready to accept punishment and apologized to Asuna and Erenn. Silver looked at Asuna, but she refused to speak to him. The master said they preferred to decide the punishment but were open to other opinions. Silver was supposedly controlled by ashes, but Liza's companion was dead. She raised her wand and whispered, "Curse of the karmic flames." Silver told her to kill him if it would make her feel better. Liza held his chains and made him pledge his life to helping Erenn. If he did not, she would die too. She said that killing him would make her like him, and she wanted to remain an adventurer, so she would not do it. Whether Silver held the pledge or not did not matter. If he had the will to start over as an adventurer, her life would be spared. She left the final punishment to the guildmaster and asked for Erenn and Asuna's thoughts. They both agreed. The two members of Triumph were handed in. Outside, Liza told Lucas about the Spirit Monarch and how she seemed interested in Erenn. Lucas wondered why she would hide the fact that Erenn was an elemental master. Liza agreed, saying that if it were known, the exam would not have gone as planned. Lucas wondered what her true goal was, as did Liza. Soon they were greeted by Asuna, who said the guildmaster had given them a reward. Erenn held up a bag filled with money, more than Liza had ever seen. Asuna also announced that they were gifted a stay at a resort for rest and relaxation. Karen and Abigail squealed with excitement, changing into tiny bikinis and asking Erenn if he was joining them. "I'll see you there," he said. The party arrived at Tolka Adventurers Guild's underground chamber, where they were met with a subspecies of Cyclops. Asuna raised her sword and Karen prepared for battle. They were joined by Lucas and Gil as well. Gil asked Erenn if he could use ashes too, and Erenn told him that he earned it after defeating the subspecies. He asked if Erenn really could feel nothing, and Gil questioned if he did not feel like his body was not his own or that he was losing control. Erenn responded that he could not feel anything unusual so far. Gil understood, knowing that Erenn really had become a spirit user. He asked Erenn if he noticed, and Erenn told him yes. This subspecies could only be affected by skills at SS rank or higher. When he faced the subspecies in the Neva Forest, his skills only worked as distractions at best. That was the first time he had ever experienced such a thing since becoming an adventurer. Erenn's SSS skill, the Phoenix Arrow, and Ram's SS skill, Divine Gale Flight, were enough to defeat the subspecies. Erenn told him that no matter how strong or skilled, even an S-rank adventurer could not fight evenly against a Cyclops subspecies. The same was true for Triumph. It all began in the dungeon. Liza asked if that was where Erenn awakened as a spirit user, adding that she did not think it was a mere coincidence. Silver explained it was the Spirit King who granted them ashes. He had never seen a skill like that before. The Neva forest was teeming with monsters, piecing it together. Liza and Abby preserved the incomplete subspecies, and Karen discovered a monster corpse in a cave. If the opponent had the knowledge, experience, and physical abilities of an S-rank adventurer, then combining these facts with a little deduction, Erenn turned to the guildmaster and said there was something he needed to ask. He asked him to analyze the subspecies and the corpse that Karen found. Even with trace samples, if any human tissue was detected, his theory would hold. The attack on Rochelle was not just destruction. It was to make people think that the entire population had been turned to ash. That way no one would notice if some were abducted. That was the cover for experiments or merging humans with monsters. The guildmaster asked Erenn what he was saying, and Erenn continued that the worst possible outcome would be an existence stronger than a subspecies, possessing the intelligence and abilities of S-rank adventurers being created. Silver told him they would conduct multiple prototypes before completion. Erenn wanted to help break this chain, as did Liza, who told him she had an enhancement ability skill so she could strengthen other adventurers. The guildmaster was also open to the idea. He could not believe how much Erenn had changed, from being just a boy who could tame a wolf and run errands. Now, he was a leader leaping into the heart of danger. He possessed a power even beyond a spirit user. Gil told Erenn he wanted to talk and needed to get straight to the point. He asked him what he thought of Zack. Of course, Zack was cruel and a bully to Erenn, so he was surprised when Gil asked him to save him, or at least use some of his strength. He explained Zack was someone worth respecting, and Silver added that he thought so too. But between Erenn, who did chores, and them, the adventurers, the time and relationships they shared as Triumph should be different now. Silver bluntly told Gil that it was up to Erenn and Asuna to decide what they should do about Zack. The truth was, Erenn would not know what he would do without Ran and Asuna. Now that he had become a spirit user, he felt like he understood everyone's respect towards Zack. He remembered fighting a kobold and how he froze in fear. He remembered Asuna jumping in front of him. It was the accumulation of experience that counted. There would still be a lot he did not understand if he had not become an adventurer. So as long as Zack was with the Spirit King, he had no choice but to follow his traces. He wanted Gil and the others to cooperate and told Gil that if he cared about Zack, then he needed to do that. Silver and Gil agreed, with Gil mentioning the curse Liza had put on him. He needed her to live. But Gil was struggling without his beloved gun, and Silver suggested he use another one. Yet Gil could not get his original gun out of his head. So Erenn did something. He generated a gun identical to the one Gil originally had. Gil took it, ecstatic. Erenn was glad he could do it for Gil since everything turned to ash that day, and he did not think it would be possible. Gil embraced him with tears in his eyes. They laughed and messed around, Ran calling him an insolent fool. Gil told her if it was Ran, it must be her. Even though she was in human form, he had a sense of déjà vu. Erenn explained that Ran was a wolf he used as a tamer spirit, but she evolved into a divine wolf spirit, meaning she could also take human form. Gil found it amazing, and Silver told him there was a phoenix too. Gil was amazed that Erenn was capable of such magic, joking that maybe his small size helped him. Silver scolded him for being rude since Erenn was a guy after all. Ultimately, the party agreed to work together and cooperate, but Ran still held a few grudges. She mentioned how she opposed bringing Erenn back to Triumph. Zack had submitted death certificates and forcibly expelled Erenn and Asuna. Silver was not too sure what she was talking about, but Gil said he had left by that point. After the subspecies subjugation, Zack and the rest followed the Spirit King, but Ran did not stop there. She asked how they had time to go back to the guild reception. She told Erenn to listen. After the subspecies subjugation, even though they confirmed their survival right before their eyes, the death certificate was accepted. She said if survival was confirmed, the death certificate should not have been accepted. She mentioned she encountered someone in Rochelle and the person told her about the Cyclops. It was similar to the ones Asuna encountered in the dungeon. Erenn asked who this person was and Ran told him it was Claire. Ran was not done yet though, she had a proposal. Meanwhile, Karen, Abigail, and Asuna enjoyed their time at the resort. They played in the sea, which was pretty cold. Suddenly, Abigail went missing, and Karen panicked, hoping she hadn't drowned. A sudden gush of water splashed up, and a fish landed in Karen's hands. Abigail appeared from diving, asking Karen if she had never seen a fish before. Asuna checked out the fish, and the girls spent the rest of their time happily at the beach. Outside the Tolka Adventurers Guild, Erenn showed the girls their reward. When they succeeded in missions, they were given coins that could be used to buy materials, food, or clothes. 1 gold coin was equal to 10 silver coins. The girls squealed, planning to spend their earnings at the resort. Abigail was thrilled and declared she would manage the Erenn Bank. Karen was excited to wear her bikini, teasing Asuna that she should have bought one too. Abigail scolded her for carrying her sword to a resort. but Asuna said it would be bad if something happened. The magic sword she had been using was reduced to ashes by silver. Karen apologized, saying that if she hadn't followed the bloodstains into the cave, maybe her sword would have survived. But Asuna told her what she found in that cave was important, and they were companions after all. It was enough if she supported them with skills only a phoenix could use. Karen smiled at Asuna's kind words. Abigail noticed that Erenn was starting to become independent. Pichon had been born from siphoning Erenn's mana. Asuna mentioned that Karen was doing well. She was so young and had never seen the sea, yet here she was, an S-rank adventurer whose old comrades still surpassed her. Maybe the most useless one was herself, Asuna thought. Abigail snapped her out of her deep thoughts, begging for ice cream. Out of nowhere, a rank A rogue bird appeared, and Asuna knew she needed to pull herself together. The road to the resort was riddled with lizard men, which Erenn had to defeat. He drew his phoenix arrow, acquired the spirit core of a lizard man, and fired. He also gained the skill Sharp Claw. Lucas was impressed by Erenn's ability to defeat monsters on their way to the resort. He asked Erenn to store one of the arms so he could exchange it at the guild. He also asked if Erenn had acquired any new spirit cores, but Erenn said most of the skills were already in their possession. Lucas commented that there wasn't much compared to high spirits, and Erenn agreed. He suggested that they should acquire as many skills as possible. He decided to start searching for new high spirits, beginning with preparing countermeasures. Liza said she also hoped to find high spirits and wondered where they could be. She explained that a spirit core was made up of several skills. Her magician spirit core allowed her to use flight, light, dark magic, and curse skills. From what she had seen, high spirits possessed skills far above those that protected normal humans, and forming a new contract with a high spirit was the quickest way to grow stronger. Erenn knew that was true. If he met a new one, it would be great if it agreed to contract with him. Liza was hopeful they would find one. She was happy to have Erenn with her, especially after losing her companions. More than rank or class, Erenn had taught her something far more important. Besides, she couldn't inherit her companion's skills even if she wanted to. They were gone, but the skills they passed on lived within Erenn. She was truly glad it was him who inherited them. Erenn couldn't believe Liza's words. It might have been the first time anyone had ever told him that. Lucas agreed, saying Liza was right. Erenn was not as powerless as he thought. Just as he guided Liza out of despair, he should become someone's hope. He was the most compatible. Liza giggled and asked Erenn if he was blushing. Erenn quickly denied it, saying he just wasn't used to this kind of thing. Lucas urged both of them not to lose focus and to keep training. He proposed a competition to see who could defeat the most monsters. Liza and Erenn set off, eager to push themselves to their limits. Erenn knew that this time he wanted to go from being the one who received power to the one who gave it. Asuna then spotted the bird flying low, meaning it wasn't too far away. She called out to draw it down into the open area ahead. Even so, the ominous cry of the bird rattled her mind. The rogue bird was just a monster, it was nothing like Silver. She summoned the Aqua Wave spell and then the Ice Lance. Erenn appeared, releasing his Edge Claw. His ice magic, reinforced by the Lizard Man's skill, broke through the air. He gained 2 more skills as Asuna watched in frustration, realizing he was faster than her. Erenn landed and asked Asuna if she was alright. Of course she wasn't, but she could only smile and wave. Liza cheered Erenn on, saying he would probably reach his goal before she did. Erenn promised not to lose, especially not to the 15-year-old girl. After the Ash incident, both Liza and Erenn had achieved their goals, but Asuna, on the other hand, felt left behind. She wondered what she could do and whether she would be able to face her former comrades. If only she had the strength to face everything. At the sanctuary, Karen thanked Asuna for getting the money back for her. Abigail announced that she had run after Pichon but couldn't catch up at all since Asuna wasn't there. She clung to Erenn, saying she was glad that he and the others were with her. She asked about Ran, and Erenn told her that Ran was at the Adventurers Guild, but that they should follow Ran's suggestion. Back at the guild, Ran suggested that Erenn pick up the others. She told him he would also need the guildmaster's cooperation. Erenn smiled and apologized to Ran for making her go through so much, but Ran said she didn't mind. She was finally a divine wolf, so it was no issue. Erenn smiled again and told Ran he knew how busy he had been since Uncle Joel died, but next time, they should go for a walk together, just the 2 of them. Ran bowed before Erenn's feet and told him she heard a loud noise. He asked if she was alright, but she told him he should get going. Erenn told the others that he was instructed to go alone, and they wondered why. Then Liza suddenly started clinging to Erenn as well. He asked what was wrong, and she said she wanted to join in but had been too shy. Erenn jokingly called the others over, but they invited Liza anyway. Before leaving, Erenn apologized to Asuna for leaving Abby and the others with her. Asuna said it was fine. She wanted a little rest too. She asked how Erenn and the guild were doing. Erenn explained that Gil had asked him to save Zack and to lend his strength. She asked what he said in response, and Erenn told her he had said they should cooperate if they really wanted to help Zack. Asuna wondered how Erenn managed to keep going. She admitted that she still couldn't even look at Silver. If she were in Erenn's place, she wouldn't have been able to respond the way he did. Erenn apologized, saying that even though Asuna had always helped him, the more he moved forward, the more he felt like he was dragging everyone into it. Asuna shook her head and told him she didn't want to hinder his growth. This time it was her turn to move forward, she just needed to catch up. If Triumph had been a proper party, maybe none of this would have happened. She thought she was the one who had dragged everyone into it. The distortion within Triumph hadn't just started, it had begun when she joined. The mission was the Hydra Poison mission, which took place in a narrow tunnel. Gil fired his gun at an Idatin rabbit while Dina worked to paralyze the rest. Asuna called for Silver, who used his Raiden spear. Together they fought to complete the mission. Silver collapsed and Dina told him he needed to work on his stamina. He was told to leave the small fry and material collection to Gil while they moved forward. Zack instructed Asuna, who had just joined, to work with Dina. Dina described the dragon as a monster with 9 heads. Its movements were slow, but its poison was deadly. Of the 9 heads, only the central one needed special attention. Asuna asked if this was the poison serpent dragon, and Dina told her the dragons were scattered everywhere. The ones the receptionist mentioned had likely been dissolved by poison long ago. Dina warned Asuna to be careful, but said she was sure Asuna knew what to do, if she could cut the central head. Asuna called Zack, asking what he was thinking. She wanted to know why he had increased the number of enemies. Zack told her the more they killed, the more materials they could collect. Dina told him to focus on the smaller heads. Asuna was instructed to paralyze the dragon, so she did her best, leaping high to stop it from moving. When she came back down, she asked what was wrong. Zack was struggling, surprised that he couldn't defeat the monster. Eventually, Zack dropped his sword, saying that the more he erased the weak, the more he became himself. The feeling was thrilling for him. When the party returned home, they were celebrated with gifts and a feast. People begged to hear the story of the dragon, but Triumph refused to tell it. Although they were strong, they were poor company, doing little with their fame or money. After the feast, they were given 3 subjugation missions and told to gather at the gate at sunrise. Gil asked Zack what he was doing afterward, and Zack replied that he was going on another hunt. Silver asked if he could follow, and Zack told him to do as he pleased. Dina agreed to take the poison serpent dragon's venom to experiment with the masters. They waved her goodbye until morning. Asuna prepared her equipment for the next day, determined to do her best. As a magic knight, she sharpened and enhanced her weapon. She looked at her teammates with determination, knowing she couldn't afford to lose. Although Triumph's members were perfectionists, she was inspired by their enthusiasm. They avoided drinking or pleasures, finding battle to be their greatest joy. Dina told Asuna how talented Triumph was and that it was time to hire a helping hand. If unnecessary work was reduced, the others could focus more on training and combat. Thanks to the guild's introduction, they hired a support member for the first time. And from that point, Triumph began to change. The first Erenn boy was treated poorly, even though he admired the party's skills. Zack punched him and insulted him cruelly. Asuna rushed to defend the boy, but Zack didn't care. The cycle began. Each Erenn boy eventually quit, unable to handle Zack's behavior. Dina suggested hiring someone more skilled next time, but Silver said no one with skills would accept such a low position. Asuna reluctantly suggested working more closely with the hire, but her words were ignored. Zack refused to be friendly or adapt to menial work. Dina agreed with him. Asuna asked if Dina had a goal too, and whether strength was truly the only way to achieve one. Dina said that surrounding yourself with strong people was the best way to improve. Zack added that by observing the mindset of top-class warriors, you could steal their methods and grow stronger yourself. That, he said, was how success was born. Dina agreed, telling Asuna that mindset had taken her far. Asuna listened carefully, determined to match an S-rank party. Zack told her that the weakest were the worst. He said she should take initiative, even if it meant pushing others down. Asuna asked if those words really came from him, but Zack told her she didn't need to know. He walked away, leaving her confused. She knew Triumph could collapse if they stopped functioning. She needed to do something and wondered if she should train the support member herself so that everyone would understand. She put out a call for help, but there were no applicants. Their bad reputation had spread. Asuna was out of ideas until one day she encountered a monster chasing a young boy. She rushed to rescue him, and the boy thanked her. He looked very young and had a pet wolf. Asuna wondered what he was doing in a place like that. The boy told her he was on a journey to find medicinal herbs to cure his uncle. The boy, who introduced himself as Erenn, said his uncle was the only family he had, so he had to do something for him. He couldn't afford to stand still. Asuna asked Erenn to become their support member and brought him to meet the rest of the party. He told them about his journey to help his uncle. When they asked about his parents, Erenn said they were gone and his uncle had raised him. Gil found it sad, but Zack was suspicious. Still, most of the party wanted to take him in, especially since Asuna vouched for him. Zack didn't like the idea and raised his sword, but Asuna stepped in to protect Erenn. She couldn't understand why Zack was acting like this, especially after finding such a good kid. They had many missions ahead and needed help. Zack finally turned away, telling Asuna to make Erenn useful. Erenn promised to work hard since he owed Asuna for saving him. She began training him and helped him collect herbs. They visited the market where Gil got into an argument with a stallkeeper. Erenn gave Silver some good advice, earning his respect. Silver even helped Erenn search for herbs, and Erenn thanked him. Erenn continued to work hard and showed a unique quality unlike the previous errand boys. Asuna hoped Zack would acknowledge him for the sake of triumph. She couldn't understand why Zack despised those weaker than him. Erenn asked Lucas why Zack was so obsessed with strength. Lucas hesitated but explained that Zack rarely spoke about his past. When he was 10, he came to Lucas and begged to become his disciple after defeating a horned rabbit. He was the weakest among his siblings, and his parents had sold him. He had endured terrible things, so his obsession with strength likely came from those experiences. To Zack, a party was simply a gathering of strong people to increase his own power. Maybe Erenn reminded him too much of his weaker self, making it hard for him to accept anyone beneath him. Asuna looked down, wishing she had the strength to guide him properly. Then maybe it would never have come to this. That is the end of the recap at Chapter 23. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.